All right, we're back. We're back. JV Wins Dogon SS as I adjust my microphone here.
You
Conscious approach on YouTube. Appreciate everybody out there for tuning in, watching the videos, liking the videos, hitting the subscribe button, leaving those comments. We certainly appreciate all the support as we continue to grow this community and kick around that logical content. Do your boys a big old solid if you have not already done so, and this is your first time checking out any of our content. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel because this is how we like to do things each and every week. It is all about creating, curating, and supporting one another through the consumption of logical content.
that's right.
So, the boys are back in the building, and we certainly appreciate you for joining us along for the ride. With that out of the way, we will go ahead and get things kicked off today with in addition to the ongoing saga involving the fallout over Kendrick Lamar and Drake's rap slash hip hop beef, whatever the hell you want to call it. And apparently things continue to get messier and messier. And now they have extended over into the realm of the specter of potential violence. Now, I'm not exactly sure who this fella is, but apparently he is an associate of Drake's. His name is Top Five, and apparently he is a Toronto rapper. And he is not a very big fan of Kendrick Lamar. Let's just put it that way. And in lieu of expressing how much of a non-fan of Kendrick he is, this fellow who once again goes by the name of Top Five is basically saying that it's on site if Kendrick ever shows up in Toronto. And, this kind of seems a bit too far, but we are going to go ahead and discuss it to get the community's thoughts on how they feel about this. Maybe they need to check me or check Dogon or check somebody if they feel as though we're out of pocket for this. But be that as it may, this says Top Five threatens to shoot Kendrick Lamar if he ever goes to Toronto. After Drake paid for Top Five's legal fees to beat a murder case, the Toronto rapper got right back to reverting to his violent ways, at least verbally. Moreover, you've probably already heard about how Top Five threatened Drake's opponent, Kendrick Lamar, during a recent live stream. Now he's doubling down on his promises of violence thanks to a recent appearance on Late Night with Leah Mai, during which he threatened to hit K Dot with a drive-by shooting if he ever crosses into Toronto. Of course, this is pretty much the worst way in which this feud could have evolved, so we pray that these are empty threats for everyone's sake. Tell him to come to Toronto. Swiss cheese, Top Five said of Kendrick Lamar. I'll get the low, put on my Nike Tech Black. Tell YG, get us a driver, put the window down and get some fresh air. How disrespectful are y'all to ask me about Kendrick Lamar? Drake's a bad boy. There's a girl right there. You want her to get you? Don't disrespect my homie Drake like that. My propose that Kendrick beat Drizzy in their battle, which made Top Five very angry. I'm looking for Metro Boomin and Kendrick Lamar, Top Five previously threatened on a live stream with Aiden Ross and DJ Academics. I'm doing my homework right now. I'm doing my task on them. Nothing incriminating. I'm just looking for them. I want Metro Boomin one-on-one. I don't want no weapons, nothing. I'd knock him the F out. Kendrick Lamar, you passed the border. Chubbs called me. I will quit rapping if Kendrick Lamar goes to the Toronto restaurant New Ho King without 20 police officers. You're crazy for testing my gangster. You see what happened to DJ Drama? Me and Drake are going to link up in a couple of days and we're going to do this podcast and we're going to play the Not Like Us video and we're going to look at every N-word in the video and we're going to do homework. Top Five continued. We're going to look for them N-words. I don't F around. Play around about Aubrey. That's my bro, my Jewish brother. Shalom. Hopefully, Kendrick Lamar's friends aren't serious about their retorts either. So this guy seems to be pretty serious when it comes to how much he dislikes this guy, Kendrick. And he says it's on site. And he going to put the window down and get some fresh air. For anyone who needs a hint on what he's referring to, he's talking about doing a drive-by shooting on Kendrick if Kendrick ever shows up in Toronto. I think it's easy for everybody to blow smoke and say that this isn't very serious, but you never really can tell these days. And the fact that it's being elevated to this level alone, to me, is absurd in and of itself. But what do you make about Mr. Top Five's threats towards Kendrick if Kendrick ever shows up in Toronto?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of this top five character. Much like yourself, I've never heard of this human being. And the way he talks, I don't think he's much of a rapper. He's probably more of a comedian. I did more laughing in that segment than I did of worrying or fearing or shaking in my boots. The way that he's coming off, I think he's got the Fed's interest as well. Now, nowadays, where Rico acts, guys getting locked up for real, guys getting indicted for real, self-snitching at an all-time high for real. I don't think these are wise words to be saying on the internet. So there's only two ways to take this. Either A, he's just an absolute idiot and follows through with this and throws the rest of his life away and his Shalom brother Drake in prison for actually doing a Rico type act on a very well-known celebrity, or he's just doing this for the clout. I'm leaning towards the latter on this one because, hey, he did a good job, I guess, at least to the sense that now I've heard of this character called Top Five where I've never heard of him before this. So this looks like a gentleman that participated in the OVO sweatshop, probably wrote down some rhymes for Sir Drake, a bar here, a bar there. I don't think this guy's talented enough to write a whole song. So I take this guy as one of his sweatshop employees, if you want to call them employees. I don't know how much they get paid. So I just take this guy for a clown. If I were Kendrick in this situation, I would find this utterly hilarious. I would, if I had reason to go to Toronto, I would still show up, as is. If probably even before this guy even said this, I'm pretty sure he wasn't even really interested in going there anyway, because of the spirit of how people may feel there. So I don't think that if Kendrick doesn't go to Toronto, it's not a signal of him fearing Top Five. It just probably was something on his I don't feel like going there to-do list because of all the animosity that this situation may have caused. But be that as it may, if there's anything that happens to Sir Kendrick, well, Top Five and OVO are going to be under investigation, even if it happens in Toronto or domestically. So I wouldn't fear this if I was Kendrick. I think this Top Five is just doing it for the clout, doing it for the name recognition. So I'm not buying it. I think that this was more hilarious than threatening. But what are your thoughts, sir, on Sir Top Five rolling down the window and getting some fresh air on Kendrick Lamar? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is silly. And this is the difference between this music and other forms of media and entertainment. Whenever we talk about the unique form of mind control that is this music, people always try to draw up these false equivalencies of, well, there's a suspension of belief when it comes to movies. It's the same thing. It's all art, it's all art. It's not real. This is a prime example of how it's largely interpreted as real by a decent amount of people who live by it enough when it comes to how they conduct their own respective realities. There's an aspect of it where it's presented to us as it's a suspension of disbelief, meaning that this stuff is an extension of these guys' real lives. And that's the difference. That's why this stuff is so palpable whenever we have these conversations talking about the mind control aspect of the music and how it has ceased to be art and entertainment and has become a literal lifestyle. for a large segment of people. He's not smart to speak in this manner because if something happens unlawfully that even remotely involves him, uh, sound bites like this could very well be used as evidence against him. Very similar to what has happened with Young Thug. And in the event that that takes place, what will disappoint me more than anything else is all of the apologists and the placaters who will come out of the woodwork to talk about how he is being treated unfairly by the system because he does not deserve to be dealt with in this manner, and lyrics and words and songs shouldn't be used as self incriminating evidence. Well, whether you think that that is the case or not, the fact of the matter is the precedent has been established that it will be. Knowing that it will be and still doing this puts you in a bit of a precarious situation if you ever happen to get bammed up in the future. But as we discussed last week with our David Banner topic, there's an element within our culture of excuse making and being an apologist and a placater for bad behavior. And there is certainly a fine line between holding people accountable for uh, ill-advised actions, but also lamenting the state of affairs and gaining an appropriate understanding for the circumstances that leads one into doing certain things.
Mhm.
I think it's important for us to respect where that line exists, but to not act as though it doesn't exist and to just jump all on the side of excuse making, which is what would happen if this guy got into trouble. All of a sudden, when the law decides that they are going to use sounds like this to their advantage, because this guy is openly on podcasts talking about how he's going to do this kind of stuff, whose fault is that? At that point, that's the system's fault. That's the judicial system's fault. That's the white man's fault. It's going to be everybody else's fault except top fives, I would assume. And that is going to annoy me, although it won't surprise me. So my whole thing is these were stupid comments, um, ill-advised. Whether he means them or not, they very well could get him caught up, get him in trouble. And if Drake is as smart as his fans tell me he is, Drake should be the first one on the phone telling this guy to not talk like this in public because it's bad business for everyone associated with him. It hurts the bag, as Drake would probably say. So, all the way around, there's nothing really smart about talking like this. But my main takeaway from this entire situation is there's a litany of trails of behavior that is probably going to be able to be levied at this guy's direction if something unfortunate ever comes his way in the legal sense. And despite all of those breadcrumbs, people are nevertheless going to say that he is a victim and he is being victimized and that he's being persecuted and he's being targeted unfairly. Well, if you don't want to be targeted unfairly, don't go on a podcast and say that you're willing to do a drive-by shooting on a rapper. That's probably step one. Don't do that, especially given your knowledge that this can very well happen. And I'm fairly sure he's well versed in everything that's going on with the YSL situation with Young Thug. And you still do it anyway. So whose fault is that? I'm sure everyone else will tell me it's everyone else's fault. But I'm looking at him and I'm saying, bro, stupid move. As far as Kendrick is concerned, um, I'd like to say, bro, it's no big deal. Show up in Toronto whenever you feel like it. But people take stuff way too far these days. Humans can't be trusted. People aren't responsible enough. We are well past the days where we can hold humans individually. Well, we can hold individuals for being responsible. But people in mass, I'm past that point. People can't be held responsible. I don't trust anybody. So, as much of a clown or a buffoon as this guy puts himself on Front Street to be by talking like this, you nevertheless cannot put it past an individual to get so juiced up and charged up off of the attention that he's received from talking like this to feel as though he needs to actually go out and exact something in person. And we've already seen the stuff going on where Rick Ross went up to Toronto and got his head bashed in by somebody who's a Drake stan. And I'm not saying Rick Ross is or is not a tough guy, but Rick Ross should be able to go and perform in Toronto without getting his head bashed in by some random Drake stan.
Mm-hmm.
And it is largely perceived that Kendrick got the best of this guy. So, you never, my point with that is you just can't put anything past people. So he ought to be careful moving forward, because people talking like this, you never know what can or cannot happen. But um, overall, the excuse makers who are going to come to this kid's defense in the event that something happens to him, those people are the reasons why these kinds of things keep happening. And we are going to have to do a much better job as a community, not just from the racial sense, but the music listening community at large as well. People need to be held accountable for doing dumb stuff. And this was just dumb. If something happens to him, it's his fault. It's not the world's fault. We need to do a better job of that, because that will be the ensuing narrative if something were to happen to him.
Yeah, man, I agree, bro. And but I honestly, I would say like the only people that would think that anything that this guy just said was cool are just teenage kids that's like on TikTok and Fortnite kids, and ones that think that crashing out is still a cool thing. So so top 5 knucklehead, top 5 crash out, top 5 whatever you want to label this guy, but he's damn sure not a top 5 rapper. He definitely doesn't have top 5 intelligence. And again, like I said in my opening statement, nowadays where the feds are really listening to y'all songs, they're really watching y'all's interviews, you know, they're really watching y'all videos. So everything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. So this is not a wise thing to do. But when somebody is in the position that this guy is in, Lord knows the reason why he would idolize Drake so much to come to his defense in such an aggressive fashion online. So I don't know what this guy's got going on, but he's clearly not well in the head. So I guess he's top 5 not well in the head. So I would say that this guy here, what if he wanted to be relevant, this is not the way to do it. Now, honestly, he's just ruined his entire rep. I think people are. I like to give people more credit nowadays. I think people are more observant. I think people are seeing what's going on. I think people are reading the tea leaves, and I don't think these guys are getting the type of clout that they used to get for acting like this anymore. Besides, again, these really young people that are, still caught up in some weird wave. But be that as it may with this character, he's going to get his due cummings one way or another, talking and thinking like this. So I wouldn't feel any kind of way if the guy gets roped off and thrown in the slammer because of some knucklehead act that he did. I wouldn't feel no type of way. And I think there's a lot of people that will point and laugh about how dumb this was. You literally following behind Drake and willing to do things that Drake himself isn't willing to do. What kind of man are you? And that's the ironic part about this, that this guy think that he's being tough and manly by doing and saying such a thing. But the flip side of that is that this is actually cowardice and not manly. So top 5, I hope you learn your lesson here. You're not going to win the internet with this. People are going to do more laughing at you about this situation than fearing you. And even if you actually do commit a crime to prove everybody wrong, you didn't prove anybody wrong, because you just, again, proved that you're a top 5 crash out. So enjoy your 15 seconds of fame, sir. You didn't even get a full minute. So enjoy this lamery, sir, because you just made your bed. Hope you enjoy the sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Maybe he's one of those people that Drake alludes to in Drake's songs when he talks about how he's got all these people ready to ride for him and shoot for him and all of this other stuff.
Lord have mercy.
I hope he's paying you guys well. I hope you guys are enjoying a hefty payroll on his behalf because being a tough guy on behalf of the non-tough guy
Right.
is never a sustainable business model. And this obviously isn't a Drake topic, but it comes as no surprise that somebody like this rides for somebody like that.
Exactly.
It's just, it's just wild business. And I mean, this guy, yeah, Drake ponied up money to help him beat a murder charge. So this kid is about that type of narrative, at least. I don't know if he's really about that. And he's, spoken to the effect of bragging about some of the relative luxuries that he experienced while being in jail. Um, boasted about his time in jail. So he's one of those guys. And one thing that we can both agree on when it comes to guys like that is they're easily controlled, which makes sense why he would be on Drake's payroll because all you gotta do is just throw him a couple bones and he'll bark, hop, and holler as loud as you want him to. He's a soldier, a literal foot soldier. So good luck to Mr. Top Five. I think that it is quite ill-advised to talk like that because if something like this happens, it very well can be used against you, and it'll disappoint me the way that this chicken shit community, and when I talk about the community, I'm not talking about the black community. I'm talking about the hip hop community. It's full of apologists, and there are so many elements of it that are just rife with a lack of accountability that they will come out of the woodwork to defend this guy. And there will be all kinds of campaigns and hashtags talking about free top five if he gets in trouble. And it's like, well, where was all of that? Where was all of the advisement when he was going on podcasts talking about how he's going to run up and do a drive-by shooting on a very well-renowned rapper who's about to perform at halftime of the Super Bowl? So I'm pretty sure no one's talking about that. But as soon as something happens to him, everybody's going to want to defend him and say how he should be freed. I don't understand it, but I wasn't meant to. So it is what it is.
Well,
It's
that's what
not
I'm
smart
saying.
at all.
And that's a good point, bro. And that's what I'm saying. And it's time to put an end to that. Because there's enough of us that are tired of it. And there's guys out there, as you mentioned, that clearly committed crimes in the rap game, and people are still saying free those people. And it's about time that people just start speaking up and standing up against that. It's like, no, that guy actually unalived people. Sometimes at plural. It still baffles my mind the worship that goes around that boy from Chicago. I can't even remember his name at this point. That demon kid that was going around killing people and got unalived himself. And there's still fan worship of him, but he was literally a serial killer. So but yeah, it's just time that we put people put an end to that and speak out against it. So I'm with you, man. But I'm not gonna sit here idly by and yeah, man, I'm not gonna sit idly by and watch people big up these clowns. And so hey man, top five, put your clown nose on, man. Put your big floppy shoes on, man. Top five clown. So
No, yeah. Well, he's a clown for real because clowns do perform at the beck and call of the ringmaster, and Drake's the ringmaster, and Drake makes him perform, and he does so without giving it a second thought. So it is, clown is actually a very appropriate word to use to describe this guy, both in terms of who he is as well as his decisions. So I'm not going to say good luck to him because I think it is ridiculous that this guy really did say that he is wanting to do that to this guy if he shows up in a city over a rap beef. And furthermore, and I'll draw this same analogy with like sports this is the very last thing that I'll say.
Mhm.
what's his face got fired today? Robert Saleh,
Oh
the New
yeah, yeah.
York Jets coach, and everybody's like, "Do you feel bad for him?" And I was Shady McCoy. They was talking about it this morning, and Shady McCoy was talking about how he once during his career expressed how bad he felt when Rex Ryan got fired, and Rex Ryan checked him and was like, "Hey man, don't feel bad about me. They still got to pay me $20 million. Like you never feel bad for the millionaire. Like they'll be all right." And with this guy, you riding so hard for Drake. This dude's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Like he gonna be all right. You gonna be the one rotting away in prison somewhere if something bad happens.
Hmm.
So I just don't understand the psychology behind riding for people like that so hard. I don't get it, but it goes on. It will continue to.
Hey man, he's a top 5 clout chaser. So
Very good. Yeah. Yeah. Shouts out to Kendrick, man. Shouts out to Kendrick.
yeah, they ain't like us, bro.
Now we're going to talk about comments made by another tween Gen Z hip hop guy by the name of DDG, who, once again, he's one of these people who I didn't know who he was until he became associated with a more popular pop star. In this case, Halle Bailey, who is the younger sister of thirst trap queen extraordinary Chloe Bailey.
Ah,
And this guy DDG, he's like he's a musical artist. I think he's like a producer or an artist. He does a lot of stuff in the hip hop game, but he was formerly with Halle Bailey. They had a kid together. Now they are apparently no longer together, and he is lamenting on things that he would have done differently if he can go back and talk to his younger self about how to approach dealing with relationships of that sort. So, and by the way, disclaimer to anybody who is a DDG fan out there who watches this video. I understand that I am not very familiar with what DDG does precisely. So feel free to go ahead and let me know how much of an idiot I am in the comments because I don't know what DDG does or who he is. And feel free to also let me know in the comments what it is that he is most notable for because I don't know.
hell,
So
I'm
I'm
about to
just
look
putting
it up
that out
myself.
there. Yeah, I'm putting that out there preemptively because you do have I'm guessing there's a whole lot of DDG people out there. So y'all go ahead and lean into me and let me know what it is that I'm missing about him because I'm around this stuff and I listen to it a lot, but I'm still not very familiar with who he is or what he does. But with respect to this particular subject, it says DDG says he would advise his younger self to stay single as Halle Bailey breakup rumors swirl. DDG said he'd advise his 22-year-old self to remain single as long as possible, to focus on himself and his career. He made the comment while speaking with Jay Cinco during an episode of the No Ordinary podcast after allegedly announcing that he and Halle Bailey had broken up. It's best for you to be single in these years of your life so you can really grind. Ain't nobody going nowhere unless a girl get a new N-word or something. Whoever you like in this moment, but get your ducks in a row first and grind and not have no restrictions, he said, as noted by the Shade Room before comparing the experience of being in a relationship to a part-time job. DDG continued, if I was 22, I would tell myself, bro, just grind it out and let a relationship happen, but only happen when you feel comfortable within yourself as a man. I feel like you shouldn't get into a relationship until you feel like an N word can't DM your girl and take your girl. Like if
Hmm.
you feel like there's an N word out there that's more lit, more stable than you, that can take your girl, then you ain't working hard enough. Rumors about DDG's breakup with Halle Bailey began earlier this week when the rapper posted a confirmation message on his Instagram story. He wrote that the two will remain close friends. Halle, on the other hand, has not broken her silence on the matter. The two welcomed their first child together late last year, so on and so forth. Here is some audio and video to go along with those remarks.
I told you this on the side,
Yeah.
and I said, bro, like it's best for you to be single in these years of your life so you can really grind.
Yeah.
You know, it ain't nobody going nowhere. Bella ain't going nowhere, unless a girl get a new or something. But like Bella ain't going nowhere, Brooklyn ain't going nowhere, whatever. You know, whoever you like in this moment. But get your ducks in a row first and grind and not have no restriction. There's real restrictions when you're in a relationship.
Yeah,
it's like
definitely.
you gotta always consider their feelings.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't really work how you want to work.
Yeah.
And if I can tell myself something at age 22, I would tell myself not to get in a relationship because it's damn near like having a part-time job, bro.
Yeah.
You really have to apply a lot of time and effort. Like you might be doing videos all day and your girl get an attitude when you're doing your last video, like, nigga, you want to eat. When you gonna take me to the movie? When we gonna go on a date? And then it causes relationship problems in your real life that can affect your content. And you might get mad in the argument. You might not want to film the next day, might not want to stream the next day, might not want to go to the studio the next day, whatever. Like, so I would tell myself if I was 22, I would say, bro, just grind it out. Let a relationship happen, but only happen when you feel comfortable in yourself as a man. Like, I would tell me, I'm gonna stop yapping after this. My last comment. I feel like you shouldn't get in a relationship until you feel like a nigga ain't DM your girl and take your girl. Like, if you feel like it's out there that's more lit than you, more like stable than you, that can take your girl, then you ain't working hard enough.
All right, there you go. So, wise words or not from Mr. DDG.
Honestly, bro, like I don't really know what DDG does myself, but I guess he's a preacher. I think this guy's a preacher. If not, he has a calling. This guy is ordained. He's been touched by the hands of God. I can't believe you're dropping such hard facts as a young man. Yeah, man, that must have been a hell of a relationship, bro. Oh man, hey man, you got to go through things sometime, bro. And he's still a young cat, man. So he caught that lesson early. So, I think he's on the right path for the lifestyle that he lives. I think there's two worlds that people live in, man. I think people live in the mainstream world where there's mainstream stuff going on, and then there's people that's off the grid. And they don't live in the mainstream. They don't care what the Joneses are doing. And that's a very, very small minority. So DDG and this Bailey young lady, they definitely fit within the mainstream model of confusion in the dating world. And so what he was expressing was immaturity on her behalf when it came to her understanding his grind. And what he was expressing for him falling into her little traps was immaturity on his behalf of living in that world, because you can't succumb to her immaturity. That shows how immature you are. And so you're just going to learn a very harsh lesson that it sounds like he learned with this young lady. So it sounded like he grew up a bit from having to experience that firsthand. He may have seen things, he may have heard things, but it's nothing like going through it yourself. So it sounds like he went through the fire and came out a warrior. Because when you're living in that mainstream world that he lives in, that most people live in that are in the dating market, where there's an immaturity flying around all over the place, there's a certain way that men have to carry themselves. And what he just expressed of getting your ducks in a row, that's very true. Also, in the world where everybody's got locks on their phones, multiple apps, ways to delete text history, ways to delete phone history. It's hard to trust any damn body nowadays that's living in the mainstream world. Now, if you're an off the grid person, I'm not talking about you, or maybe I am, but still, nevertheless, yeah, man, people love to play innocent out here, but still, nevertheless, man, yeah, and for in his context where she is, this Bailey young lady, yeah, man, she's got dudes DMing her all the time. I'm pretty sure they had "let me look in your phone" arguments, and he probably seen some stuff or whatever. Hence the part where it was like, hey, man, if you get to the point where even feeling jealous enough to feel like another dude has that ability to do that over you, then you're not in your right space, in his world. And so I would say this, and then I'll let you go. Living in the mainstream, living in the mainstream dating pool, there's only one way to go about this if you're a man. And that is full steam ahead on whatever the hell it is you're doing. Do not put aside your project. Do not put aside your passion. Do not put aside the energy that you put into executing any of these things. Because the moment you do, you lost. And then, because I'm telling you, whatever woman that made you do that, she's going to be unattracted to you as soon as you do that. Every moment that you don't do your work to come cake up and lay in the bed, her vagina dries up. She's immediately looking for the next person to conquer. So in his world, the mainstream dating world, men have to be out there constantly executing their passion and their goal, and constantly keeping the woman in a position of, you don't spend enough, you don't do enough, or well, that's fine. And as soon as you succumb to that, you lost. So, so him saying, keep your ducks in a row, put all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. So there's no finish line with this. You constantly have to be rearranging and fixing those ducks. And you constantly have to keep that energy of, hey, I got to go arrange these ducks. Oh my gosh, again? Yeah, well, you don't like it? And just keep moving. Because the moment you do, and the moment you give that up, you're going to regret all of that stuff that you gave up in order to placate to somebody that ended up cheating on you anyway. So wise words to a young man who's living in a very fast world with all of these fast people in this crazy dating market. So word of advice, man, find you somebody that's off the grid and get off the grid your damn self. But what are your thoughts, Mr. JV Wins, on what Mr. DDG, Pastor DDG, dropping facts out here? What are your thoughts, man?
The words make sense. What he said makes sense. I've always contended that in order for a man to be able to successfully date, now you can date, to be able to do it successfully. In order for a man to be able to successfully date, there's three things that he needs. You need to have, and these are all of the same level amount of importance, in my opinion. You need to have reliable transportation, meaning, you own your transportation. You're not constantly in and out of the shop making repairs. One day is running, the next day it doesn't. No, you're on top of it. You make the note, you're servicing it, you keep the oil change, you keep the maintenance up on it comfortably. And you can get from point A to point B whenever you feel like it without any complications. The second thing that a man needs in order to be able to successfully date is a roof over his head. And it has to be a roof that you are not sharing or cohabitating with others. You're not living with parents or relatives. You don't have roommates. You are maintaining a space by yourself, for yourself, and you can do it comfortably. Now, it can be a house or it can be an apartment. The point is, you need that private space that is your own domain, that you have complete and utter control and dominion over. And the third thing that he needs is a decent amount of disposable income. He needs discretionary income. After you've paid all your bills, after you've paid the rent or the mortgage, after you have paid for all of the maintenance on that car, and you filled the gas tank up and you've gotten all your groceries, when all of that is said and done, you still have enough money to where you're not relying on your next influx of income in order to be able to keep it moving. You've paid everything and now you still have money in your pocket to shake stuff. If a guy has all three of those things, you can be out in the world and successfully date. See, I've never put a dollar amount on this stuff. And if you listen to enough of these toxic red pill podcasts where they bring on toxic women, They'll have you thinking that you need to make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. You need to be a millionaire. You need to be able to do all of this stuff. You got to be Captain America. You need to be a millionaire, and you got to be 6'6", and you got to have the best sex game in the world. You basically got to be perfect. You have to be a super soldier. Like if you watch enough, if you consume enough of if you consume enough of that content on the internet, it'll have you thinking that that's what you require. You don't even need to put a dollar amount on it. If you have those three things in whatever way that you can manifest it, you can go out here and you can do some damage dating wise. So from that standpoint, what he is saying is true, because if it takes a guy postponing his dating life, putting women off to the back burner, relegating them to second fiddle, because his primary focus is mastering his craft, maximizing on his opportunities, really being in the lab, getting to work. You know what I'm saying? If he's prioritizing that, and as a result, women take a back seat because you have a bigger picture in mind in order to be able to secure those things for himself, then that makes complete and total sense. So from that standpoint, I'm with you when you say that he's rather prophesizing, because in my opinion, if you're a guy and you are ill-equipped when it comes to those three main qualifiers, you should probably take a seat and work on yourself to the best of your ability so that you can come out fully fledged and have all of the requisite tools necessary to be a more viable dating prospect out here in this very crazy dating world. Where I will depart in what he said, however, is when he mentioned if you ever feel as though another dude can come and take your girl, he can DM your girl and take your girl if he has more money, if he's more lit, whatever that means. So on and so forth. I know. So where I will depart from what he had to say is, if that's the litmus, you'll never be removed from dealing with that stuff. Because unless your name is Bill Gates or Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos, okay, unless you're these people, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, unless you've got money on that level, there's always a guy who has more money than you.
That's true.
It's a hamster wheel that you will run on into perpetuity, chasing that carrot. Because if the litmus is whether a guy can come and take your girl because he has more than you to offer, you're going to be running on that thing forever, because there's always a guy with more money. There's always a guy with a bigger house. There's always a guy with a nicer car. There's always a guy with a higher net worth. Always. There's always a guy who has a bigger jet. There's always a guy with, more stuff that he can entice some of these women with. So if you're a guy and you find yourself in an environment in which that's the litmus, in my opinion, it's an indication of the type of women that you're choosing to give your energy to.
Correct.
And that is the kind of thing that I think a man can adjust. Now, you don't have any control over what a woman says or does or wants. You really don't. But can you maximize on everything that you got going on? Can you get the roof over your head and then make gradual improvements on that? Yes. Can you get the car or the vehicle and then over time make gradual improvements on the car or the vehicle? Yes. Can you have the disposable income and then gradually over time make improvements to the amount of disposable income that you have at your, not to sound redundant, money at your disposal? Yes. But is there always going to be a guy who has more? Yes. And if you're fighting against the idea that you want a woman to be secure, that another guy who has more can't come and take her from you, you should probably adjust the type of energy, the type of women you're giving your energy to.
Correct.
Because you're never going to be able to overcome that. And you use the word mainstream, a lot of guys in his position, himself included, are dating in the matrix.
Correct.
Where you are constantly going to be giving your energy to those types of women who make themselves available to someone who can give them more.
Yes.
And at that point, it's your fault, bro, not theirs. It's yours.
Correct.
But that's our fatal flaw. We have like our judgment when it comes to this kind of stuff is very askew. Like we choose to buy into this hype instead of just going the other way. And as you say, going off the grid. But DDG can't get off the grid.
No,
He
can't.
needs to be popping on his Instagram and
Correct.
his TikTok and his music. And,
Yeah.
and he needs to be able to show up to these events with the next pop star or hip hop female star or Instagram model.
Correct.
He needs to be able to feed that beast. So he, in this respect, is his own worst enemy, him and other men like him. So while I can respect the words that he uttered on the surface, at the end of the day, I don't believe him. Because all he's going to do is maybe get more money, get a better car, maybe he'll get a nicer house, maybe he'll get a little bit more stuff, but all he's going to do is turn around and talk to the next chick who's all about the stuff.
Correct.
And at any given moment, he can be replaced by the next guy who has the next most amount of stuff.
Yes.
So unless he is going to undergo a paradigm shift and change the way that he goes about giving his energy to certain types of women, he can talk like this all he wants to. He'll never be removed from this environment. And in my opinion, he'll have no one to blame but himself.
I mean, well said, man. And that's what I was saying as far as, being off the grid, because, he can't live that life. So for people that are living in the matrix where he lives, this was gospel for those people. And for the most part, that's the majority of people in the dating pool right now. They're not doing it to the point to where they're at DDG status, but this goes on at office spaces. This goes on when people are at the grocery store or they link up and they meet somebody or whatever dating apps, however people meet people nowadays. All right. Generally speaking, you're going to meet somebody that's in the matrix themselves. So if you are dealing with a matrix person, you have a decision to make. First, you have to be able to make that analysis. Am I dealing with somebody in the matrix or not? And if you're dealing with somebody in the matrix, that goes by a certain rule. And you have to carry and conduct yourself a certain way. And the way that he put it is the best. And the one kickback that I would give him is that he thinks that there's an end game to this, that he needs to be more popping and more lit.
Right.
But there is, like you mentioned, there is no more popping and no more lit, because that girl has an appetite that can never be satisfied. And so even if he is more popping, he can be 10 times more popping, more lit, right? Get a girl that's a step below this Bailey young lady, and she would do the same thing with a guy that's below where he's currently at now. So it doesn't even matter if the guy's more popping or not, because this girl has a crazy appetite because she's in the matrix. So that's why I mentioned, and I caveated at the beginning, that you have to be, there's mature women that are off the grid. There are mature men that are off the grid. So those are the people. If men really want a woman that's going to stay solid, stay 10 toes down, blah, 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 blah. All right. You're going to have to get a woman that is not participating with none of this stuff. She doesn't care about none of the Joneses. She barely, if any, has any social media apps. Like, she just doesn't care about that stuff. All right. She's got her own thing popping. Most likely, what most people would consider like a nerd, because she's so off the beaten path of where everybody else is doing. But when you in his boat and you want the baddest chick in the game and you want all this other stuff, yeah, and you want all this stuff, most likely she's in the matrix.
Yep.
And so if you are in the matrix as a man, because the women are going to do their thing, they don't need an instruction manual. All right. If you're a man in the matrix and you're doing this stuff, the answer and the solution to that is, as I mentioned, getting your ducks in a row. It is falling in love with your passion. That is what drives you. That's the only thing that can drive you. And if you decide to bring this person along with you or give them as much attention and credibility as your passion, you lost. Because as soon as that situation blows up in your face, there's going to be instant regret. Man, I didn't do X, Y, and Z because I was over here doing that. man, I could have been over here. I was moving so much before I met her. Then I met her. Then I started doing all this dating whoop-de-whoop stuff. And it blew up in my face. And I can see how much ground I done lost because I was over here playing with this stuff. Yeah, because you're trying to do an off-the-grid thing with an on-the-grid woman. So for this guy's sake, that is gospel for people in the Matrix. So yeah, I would give that one caveat that, yeah, he still probably has a little bit more understanding to get because he thinks he got to get popping more, a little bit more lit in the game.
Yes, he thinks that there's an apex, and like, bro, you're in for a rude awakening.
Yes.
If you think that you can get more popping and more lit and have this not happen to you, or have it to where you will be able to cease having to deal with some of the woes that you dealt with, whatever those may have been with your previous situation. There's no end to this. There's no end to this. These types of people are hypergamists to the fullest.
Yes.
And they believe in it. They believe in it as a way of life, and they will not apologize for it 1 second. And to be honest, you really can't. I mean, you can, because to a certain extent, a person's actions are their responsibility. So if a person has toxic and corrosive tendencies, it's appropriate to call them out on that. But ultimately, can you say, I'm going to hold women responsible for how dysfunctional a lot of this stuff is? In my opinion, you can't, because their behavior is more often than not rewarded. So the way that I see it, if a woman, hypothetically speaking, I'm not being specific in any kind of way, but if a woman is going to conduct herself in such a way that she can get with this guy and maybe get taken by another guy because that guy is, he entails everything that DDG described in that video clip, she can't really be blamed per se, because her behavior at the end of the day is being rewarded by the next guy who comes along to step up and give her what it is that he thinks she wants, until she continues to get more and more and more. It's like you said, their appetite for this stuff is entirely insatiable. There's never going to be an end to it. No. There's never an amount of money that's enough. There's never a car that's nice enough. There's never a house that's big enough. There's never a height that's tall enough. There's never an amount of tattoos that are cool enough. There's never the kind of hair there's never the kind of hairstyle or swag that's swaggy enough. There's always more. And who is that on? The people who reward the behavior, or the people who seek it because they know that they can get rewarded for it? So at the end of the day, a guy in his position is going to have to shift his paradigm.
Yes,
and I don't believe he's in position to do it. The way that he's speaking, he is firmly entrenched in the idea that all he has to do is acquire more. That's him and others of his ilk believe the very same thing. And if you believe in the notion of the trickle-down effect, which I absolutely do, this has transcended into regular society. Everybody's dating in the Matrix, from the CEO of a Fortune 500 company all the way down to the person who works cashier at McDonald's. Everybody is doing the same thing. So you have to shift your paradigm and know the kind of person that you want, and be assured in yourself that you don't care about what you're missing out on by making that shift. And if you are not firm in your ability to do that, then you are going to have to just understand that there's no end in sight for this. It is a hamster wheel that you will be running on forever, because there's always more stuff. There's always more stuff. So he's in for a rude awakening if he believes that all he has to do is acquire more stuff, and he will be impervious to being done however dirty he may or may not have been done when it comes to dealing with women in that particular space. And if he thinks that he can just get more and be impenetrable, you got another thing coming, bro, because it ain't gonna stop. There's always more stuff.
Yeah, man, I agree. And last thing I'll say is, just for people that are in the matrix, because sometimes, bro, it's hard to get out. You know, it's the matrix, it's the matrix for a reason, baby. So, you know, why you in there, accomplish and achieve, man. Accomplish and achieve. Do what you must do. Try to get your way up out of there for sure. Some people gotta know you in the matrix first. Get up out of it. So some of these people are just all up in there. But all I gotta say, man, is accomplish and achieve. Accomplish and achieve. These achievements, like again, like, you know, rewards, trophies in your life or whatever, you know, that's not the main thing. But when you accomplish and you achieve, hopefully your accomplishments and your achievements has something to do about reaching your self-actualization. You know, you have a goal out there that you want to go achieve it, then go achieve it, you know. And then when you go out there and achieve it and you're reaching these levels of this actualization or whatever, then you can give back and you can do things, you know. At least that's how I view it in my world. And so, you know, I look at it like working out, like training. Like I have a goal that I want to accomplish. I'm trying to get like this. And I know that it requires this many steps and I got to do that. And I got to, you know, and once you hit that, you know that there's more that you can achieve and more that you can do or whatever. But once you've accomplished so many goals, you can help others accomplish their goals. Men's duty, in my opinion, men's duty is to be out there and do things to like enrich the world like that. Our job is to be outside and accomplishing. And in some weird primitive way that these women, they want to see a guy do that. Even the women in the matrix. And so that's why I say for this guy or anybody else that's living out there, just go out there and accomplish yours. If you so happen to have a child with a woman like this guy did here, give back to your child. Do your fatherly duties as much as you can with this woman, but go out there and achieve. So it's not all doom and gloom. If you are in the matrix, you can still be the best version of yourself as possible, but try to mature yourself in a way while you're on this thing to get off the grid and know that there's a way to live outside of all of this thoughting that's going on, both male and female, because everybody out here is just giving it up. It is absolutely disgusting, to be honest. And, you know, when I was a younger person, I was like, damn, man, why it's so hard to, you know what I'm saying? It was putting you through the horse and pony show. It was, you know what I'm saying? It was, you know, playing hard to get. Not nowadays, everybody's giving it up. And so, you know, I thought that would be cool. It ain't. It's gross. So I choose to be off the grid, man. You know, off the apps. Off the club scene, off the bar scene, you know, I choose to do that. And so, but while I'm doing that, also go out there and achieve your goal. And even if you get you a woman off the grid, you still got work to do. So keep your ducks in a row. So there's a lot to be said here. So I agree, man. Men need to be out there accomplishing. But there's two sides of it. And, you know, how are you living in the matrix? And do you have the mindset of all I need is 6 figures, like you said? All I need is that, because that, trust me, there's levels to this. And even if you got you a woman that you think that 6 figures will satisfy, trust me, there's a bigger bag she wants now. Now she know you got it. So get you a woman outside of the matrix, man. Get yourself up out of it. And while you're doing all that stuff, you should still be achieving the best you can. So best of luck to you, DDG, man. Oh boy, you know what I'm saying? I think he's on the right path for a person living in the matrix. So I don't think he's going to get out of it. He seems to be entrenched. He's a celebrity, dude. So at least keep your eyes forward and try to achieve the best you can in the field that you're in. That's what I can tell this man.
Yeah, I just think that there's always more stuff. So
Yeah,
he's in for a rude awakening if he thinks that there's an amount of stuff he can accumulate and just have it to where he's always going to be a woman's prime choice. It's just there's always more. There's always the guy with the next most stuff. You're not going to be able to come from up under that. It's forever. So good luck, bro. But I think you need to shift your paradigm. I think you need to shift how you look at it.
Get out the matrix, bruh. Pass the DDG.
All right, and now we got to talk about LeBron James,
LeBron
who
James.
the Lakers played a preseason game against the Phoenix Suns, and what was noteworthy about this is it was the first time that he and his son were on the court at the same time. So, people were talking about this, and LeBron reflected on it after the game, talking about what it means to him, and just kind of giving his thoughts and his emotions initially on what it was like to be the first NBA player who ever plays on the same court, on the same team, in the same game with his kid. Like, none of that's ever happened before.
Yeah.
So this says LeBron James reflects on sharing court with Bronny for first time. As a father, it means everything. LeBron James, I think there's a word missing there. LeBron James was reflective after sharing an NBA court with his son Bronny for the first time. Speaking to the press after the Los Angeles Lakers preseason match against the Phoenix Suns, LeBron expressed how unforgettable the experience was. It's pretty cool for the both of us, and especially for our family, said LeBron. It's definitely a moment that I will never forget. LeBron and Bronny shared a little over 4 minutes on the court in the second quarter of the game, which coincidentally happened on Bronny's 20th birthday. Elaborating on the thrill of it all, LeBron expressed just how important this moment was as a father by explaining his lack of a relationship with his own. For a father, it means everything, added LeBron. For someone who didn't have that growing up, to be able to have that influence on your kids and have that influence on your son, be able to have moments with your son, and the ultimate, to be able to work with your son. That's one of the greatest things that a father could ever hope for or wish for. Bronny, when speaking to the press afterwards, expressed how he's learning to share the court with his father. I'm always thinking about, that's my dad, because that's literally my dad, said Bronny. But when I'm playing, he's just my teammate. That's all. Last week, ESPN's Ramona Shelburne reported that the Golden State Warriors were extremely close to drafting Bronny, but decided not to out of respect for LeBron, who made it clear that he wanted to play with his son. So here is LeBron talking about this after that preseason game against the Suns.
For it to be on his 20th birthday, as a father, what does it kind of mean? How significant is that for you as a father?
Well, for a father, it means everything. For someone who didn't have that, growing up, to be able to have that influence on your kids and have the influence on your son, to be able to have moments with your son, and then ultimately, to be able to work with your son. I think that's one of the greatest things that a father could ever hope for or wish for. So it's pretty cool.
All right, so obviously, outside of NFL football stuff, this is the only bit of NBA news, if you will, that any of the media outlets are discussing, because this is such a big deal, obviously, and it's going to be an ongoing narrative and storyline throughout this NBA season. So what do you make of LeBron's initial comments about playing with Bronny and all of that good stuff?
There's two ways of looking at this situation, man. LeBron's clearly on the side of making a legendary thing here, as far as playing with your son, and nobody's ever been able to do that. And I can pretty much imagine how heartwarming and rewarded it is to see your son out there wearing a jersey, running up and down the court with you or what have you. So I really do understand that this was a dream of his that he always wanted, and it actually happened. Hell, man, even when I used to play NCAA back in the day, where, of course I was the coach. All right. And, I simulated, my son being, cause you got to create the recruits. So I was recruiting my son. Hopefully my son could come to my daggone school. And my son came to my school, man. And I had a heartwarming feeling when he would get an interception or something, like, even though it's a goddamn video game. And I didn't care if it was nepotism. He's starting over the other guy, even though his rating's lower. I did all of that. So when LeBron James has master control over the Lakers, all right, He wants his son drafted. He wants his son playing with him, and he doesn't care at what cost because this is a dream of his, and he wants to see it actualized. So I empathize with that. I really do get that. So there's a part of me that is happy for him when it comes to that because he's actually able to have his dream actualized. However, the other side of this, the more daunting side of this, is that I think that, well, this is only LeBron's dream and that Bronny is just here for the ride. The best way I can put this is if you saw that Progressive commercial, man, I laughed my ass off when I seen that. And yeah, man. And they was like, hey, man, God, come on, we need you out here on the field, man. And, you know, his dad's saying, hey, man, get out there. What are you doing? And he's like, hey, man, I want to be an insurance salesman, bro. I don't want to be out here. You know, Bronny just wants to play video games. He doesn't want to be out there. So when Bronny runs off and goes out there to go play video games after about 2 seasons when his dad retires, you know, and then, you know, Bron's going to be like, what are you doing? This was your dream. And Bronny's going to turn around and says, no, Dad, this was your dream. And I agree with that. I think that this is all LeBron's dream, and Bronny is just along for the ride. Now I know there's a part of him that loves basketball. Hell, you don't get as good as he gotten. You don't put as much practice as you do if there's not a part of you that loves this game. All right. And I say good, you know, relatively speaking, because he could, you know, bust up some regular people. All right. But he's still not NBA ready. And it's shown itself in Summer League, and it's shown itself so far in the preseason. So my concern with this situation, even though on one hand, I am happy for LeBron, on the flip side of that, I'm concerned for Bronny. What this is doing for his psyche when he's going out there and not performing up to par, when the world is watching this and the world wants to make fun. Hell, I already saw a clip of Cat Williams making fun of this. And so, you know, because he's not rising to the occasion. So, you know, my concern is for Bronny's mental health, even as a millionaire and a billionaire dad. You know, I'm still concerned about the kid because he seems to be a nice young man. So I'm not all the way torn. I'm more on the side of Bronny than LeBron. And I think this is just a selfish act. So, yeah, man, I just wish the best for Bronny, that is. But what are your thoughts, man, on LeBron James Sr. being proud of having that father-son moment, the first in NBA history?
I don't hate it. Yeah, real quick, I'll just get it out of the way. The only part about this that I don't like is if he truly isn't NBA ready, it can stymie a guy's development to have them be thrusted into NBA competition if they're not NBA ready. So my only misgiving with this is if he isn't NBA ready, does it serve his development as well as possible to have him playing in actual NBA competition? So we will see if he just shows up on the roster every now and again, maybe against, you know, teams that aren't as good, but otherwise he's on like the G League or something like this. Like, we're not exactly sure how they're going to actually, you know, conduct his position on the team. But the only caveat with it is his like potential for not being quite NBA ready yet. And I do think that if a guy's not NBA ready, especially at his size, it's most beneficial to have him continue to develop as an NBA player at the lower levels, thereby making his position on the roster, playing in actual games, purely for symbolic reasons to serve the idea of LeBron playing with his son and all of that good stuff. And some of that is a bit weird. Having said that, I will say this. I found myself thinking this is pretty cool to see because I remember growing up, right? So I remember, you know, when I went to college, you know, when I was 18 and I went to college, and I started hanging out with people who have money. Because prior to going to college, I never really was around people who had money like that. So I go to college at a majority white university, and I start hanging out with people who have money. And I'm hanging out with them, and I go to their house. If they live locally, I'll go to their house. Sometimes, there were a few friends I had who lived in other parts of the state. And so during breaks or whatever, I'd visit them or whatever, and I just see how people lived. And I'm looking around, and like, these people live in these big houses, and they do stuff that I have no concept for. Like, they go kayaking and wakeboarding, parasailing, all of this stuff. Like, I didn't even know what that stuff was. Like, y'all do what? They have all of these extracurricular activities where they're doing all of this fly shit, and you learn more about them, and it's like, oh, their dad runs a dentist's office. Mom is a chiropractor, or maybe the dad was an attorney, and the mom is and their mom is a paralegal, or maybe you know what I'm saying. Like, maybe the dad runs his own hardware shop, and the mom is a doctor herself, or something like this. Like, you get into the weeds learning about the family history of these people, and I see how the other side lives, quite frankly. And a lot of the ways that the kids live and operate and see the world is largely an extension of what their parents were able to provide for them. And this was an existence or reality that I had no concept for. I grew up, ain't nobody really in my family got money like that. I grew up middle class, lower middle class. We pretty much lived paycheck to paycheck. An extravagant vacation for me was going to Universal Studios once every couple of years. Like, that was my idea of a lot of fun, going to Hollywood Beach or something like this. I didn't know what kayaking was. I didn't know what it meant to go wakeboarding. What the hell is that? Camping? I don't know what that is. But you get around people, and they weren't all white people. A lot of these were black people, but they just came up with a little more than me. And you see how that kind of person lives, how they see the world, and how, for the most part, those sensibilities were largely imparted to them based upon the kind of life that their parents were able to afford them. So I always wanted to be able to do that for my own children, because I didn't have that growing up. So I always wanted to be able to say, if my daughter wants to, do some stuff that my parents couldn't afford for my sister to do, I want to be able to do that. If my son wants to, be in all of these expensive ass hobbies that I couldn't afford to have, I want to be able to give it to him. It's generationally, you want to be able to improve upon the previous generation, or at least that's the idea. So while there is an aspect of this that I do find a bit disconcerting, because it does seem to serve LeBron and his career legacy significantly, as opposed to how much it directly benefits Bronny as an individual player, there is a part of this that tugs at my heartstrings personally, because it speaks to the idea of how you can do better than the previous generation so that you can provide something for your kid that was unable to be provided to you. And I experienced a lot of this stuff firsthand. Going tubing, what the heck is that? Floating down a river on a giant inner tube. I didn't know what that was until I started hanging around people who could afford to do that as kids. And riding on ATVs and dirt bikes. I didn't know what it was like to experience something like that until I started hanging around kids whose parents could afford that for them. And I really, it opened my eyes up to see, wow, there's people out here who actually do live like this. And it isn't just purely rich people or millionaires, so on and so forth. It's just people that did well for themselves. So I kind of use that as a benchmark for how I want to be able to kind of orient my life trajectory. And so from that standpoint, there's a part of this for me that is kind of cool to see LeBron doing this, because I'm not going to feel sorry. At the end of the day, do I want the best for Bronny? Yes. Am I going to feel bad for him if he flames out? Not really. He's one of the highest NIL earners already, and he signed like a $7 million deal with the Lakers. I am not going to feel bad for a millionaire. I'm not, much less a 20-year-old millionaire who's already set for life. I'm not going to feel bad for the kid. So it's on them to be able to make sure that his career progresses as well as it possibly can. But symbolically, I do think that it's kind of cool, not going to lie, even though part of it does make me roll my eyes, because at the end of the day, this is going to serve LeBron, I think, a little more than it actually serves the kid.
I hear that. Here's what I say. I can feel sorry for a millionaire kid, because I wouldn't feel sorry for a millionaire who cut and slashed his way to the top, stepped on people, and been a narcissistic arsehole his whole life in order to achieve those millions, and then cry, "Oh, woe is me, guys." It's like, you can kick rocks, because you can look behind you, bro, and there's a lot of people in your wake. This young man just went along for the ride, kind of just floating in the inner tube, and then inner tubed his way to an NIL deal, inner tubed his way into millions of dollars. He doesn't have that same kind of crazy, at least he doesn't appear to, that crazy whatever thing that makes millionaires, that make you not care about anything that they got going on, so to speak, at least in my world. And so for this young man, I think he's still a kid. And I think because he lived such a pampered life, just on the basketball court, going to his dad's games and stuff like that, that he's still a green young man. You can see it in a lot of ways. And so he plays like that too. And so my concern for this young man is that he'll be a punchline, a laughing stock, a this or that, down the line, and he has to live with that. Now, yes, he can cry in his Ferrari, but millions of dollars, money means nothing. It pays your bills, and you can go kayaking, but it doesn't give you peace of mind. So my concern for him with all of this stuff, I want him to do well. I want him to be a serviceable NBA player, so people can get off of his back. And he's only in this position because he's not ready yet. And then people are projecting that he will never be ready, and they're attacking him as such. People in the media, of course, they're gonna say what they say and, hype him up and do all this stuff. And that's not helping him. That's not helping his case, because everybody sees with their own eyes what they're witnessing. But ESPN, play a highlight of him getting one layup in 22 minutes. That's not it either. So just let the kid be the kid, man. But he's not in that position right now because of all of these adults around him making these decisions for him. So my concern is for his mental health later, and now. And I just hope that with all of this stuff, him going to the G League, because I think that was the plan for him to go to the G League, is for him to, hopefully get some bearings about himself and just be a serviceable NBA player, Gabe Vincent, and just be out there and be effective and do stuff. And if he does that, then I'll be happy. And until he shows me that this guy is an arsehole as a human being, I'll always cheer for him, despite all of the weird stuff his dad may have done. So, but yeah, that's my concern for him, in the midst of all of this.
Yeah, I understand that. Unless he becomes Marcus Jordan, I'm probably not going to feel bad for him, because that would be an indication that things went so sideways that he veered off into self-destructive behavior. Yeah. So unless he starts getting like that, I'm not going to feel too bad for him, because as you said, he's just a kid and he probably just wants to be off playing video games. If 2 or 3 years from now he stopped playing in the NBA and went and became a Twitch streamer and he's happy and content with his life, there's no room for me to feel sorry for that. At the end of the day, he'd be happy, and he's not really regretful of anything that took place. So I just kind of will just have to monitor what happens. If it comes to a point where it's like, heavy as the crown type deal, and there's a lot of negative criticism levied his way for things that aren't really his fault, perhaps. I don't see that happening though, because as far as I can tell, LeBron is just Teflon, and by extension, his son is Teflon. No credible person in the media is really negatively critiquing Bronny. If anything, it's just trolls on the internet, which at the end of the day, who cares about that? But I just kind of feel like even if he doesn't pan out as a pro, if he moves on to be successful and happy doing something else in his life, and he's got all of that going for himself, and I mean, the money to me does play a role. It doesn't buy happiness, but it certainly facilitates it, in my opinion. It makes it better. And if he's able to move on to doing something different, and he starts streaming video games, or he becomes an influencer, or doing whatever, I don't know, but he's happy and content with his life, there's no room for me to feel sorry for him. The only thing that it's just with this LeBron stuff, like I said before, there's a part of it that does appeal to me based on everything that I said before. Just being able to see that, because it's sort of microcosmically gives me an extension of how I've always wanted to provide for my own seeds. So that's why I think it's kind of cool. But overall, and I've already said this is going to be used as leverage by his fans. And I'm talking about LeBron here. The more successful this experiment is, it's going to be used as increased leverage by his fans to shove it down my throat that he's the greatest player ever. And so when I say that it will stand to serve his career legacy more than it serves Bronny, that's my greatest problem, if you want to use that word with this. But otherwise, it is what it is, man. He'll be fine. They'll be fine. If he ends up being a great pro, cool. If he doesn't, cool. Otherwise, I do think it's kind of cool, just because there is an other side to life. And if you believe any of the statistics, a good 75% of this country will never know what it's like to be on that other side because of economic circumstance. And if you strive to be on that other side so that your kid doesn't go to college and hang around a bunch of other kids who have more than him, and has him not even knowing that there's a whole other way to live, this can serve as a good way to be able to kind of show how you can go about making that happen for yourself. So I say cool, it is what it is.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say, and I agree with you to that extent, I'm not going to feel sorry for him if he is happy about life, but I would feel bad for him if he did show signs of madness, later. Because I'm like, man, he wouldn't have been like that if he didn't have to go through all that crap. And at least I can project that. But if he's happy Twitch streaming, I'm ecstatic for him. If he's happy playing in the league, I'll be ecstatic for him. I just want the young man to be happy, because it seems like he's a cool dude. And so, but if there's anything in this where he's suffering in any kind of way, or looks like he, whatever, then that's when I'll have a problem with it. So, we'll see. As you mentioned, this is an experiment. Everybody's going to be sitting here watching it. ESPN ain't going to never let us, let it down. We're going to hear about it every damn day. So we'll be witnessing it, whether we like it or not. And I'm just wishing this young man the best, man. And, and LeBron, and for your legacy, bro, bro, there's no stopping these people. If the LeBronites, they'll never let him go. So you can have all the proof in the world, they'll never believe it. So so for those people that want to add this to the legacy, because it was already brainwashed, those people can already have it. To me, this is just as ridiculous as it is to you. But hey, man, life goes on. And but yeah, man. I gotta do some of that lazy river, sipping a bear claw.
it's a it's a blast, man. I'll tell you, man. The most like my most enjoyed to this day, right? I'm 38 years old. The
Yeah.
most fun I've ever had on a birthday in my life. I turned 26 years old, and about 15, 20 people who I was friends with at the time, took me to a lazy river. They was like, "All right, man, you ever been tubing?" I didn't even know what that was. I'm like, "What is tubing?" They're like, "Oh, well, you basically just get on a giant inner tube and you float down a river and, you know, have drinks and just chill and have fun all day." So I was like, "All right, cool, I'll do it." The most fun I've ever had in my life. I promise you. I got in this giant inner tube. They had these big, and they go all out with this stuff. It was a cooler filled with Jello shots and handcrafted and made drinks, and it was filled with ice. They had a rope. The cooler had its own inner tube. The cooler that had drinks had
Yeah.
its own inner tube. So there was a designated person who held the rope that would make sure that they kept the tube that was holding the cooler floating down the river with us.
Hysterical.
And at various points down the river, you would stop, and there would be like those tree swings and
Mhm.
like the little waterfalls and stuff. It was a blast. I'm just, it's fun. But if you grow up a particular kind of way and you don't know that that's something to do, and you're not exposed to it, it's like it's a way to kind of glean, quote unquote, how the other side lives. And if you're able to self-actualize in life to the point where without spoiling your kids or your family, you can provide them with the other side of living, I think that that's a pretty cool thing. So that's what this reminded me of, because something tells me that LeBron, as goofy as he is, certainly spares no expense to show his children how the other side lives. So I think that that's just kind of cool.
For sure, man. Hey, shout out to Bronny, man, and shout
Yeah.
out to La Freak Off, man. Shout out to La
Yeah,
Hey, man, I can't help it, dog. Hey, thank you.
Good luck, Bronny. Now we have a strange story involving backlash towards Heinz, the maker of ketchup. They recently launched a new product. It's some kind of what is it? It's like a pasta.
I guess
It's a new kind of product that Heinz is offering. It's a family size pasta sauces, and there was an advert that they created that got a lot of people upset. They said that it was racially charged, racist in nature, and they weren't having it. So Heinz bent the knee and they, issued a apology publicly, but that didn't stop people from going off on Heinz for what they felt was a racially insensitive advertising campaign to promote their new family-sized pasta sauce. So this says Heinz apologizes after ad featuring black family sparks anger online. Heinz has apologized after an advertisement displayed in London tube stations featuring a black family sparked anger online. The U.S. manufacturer, which recently launched an ad campaign for family-sized pasta sauces, was criticized for promoting stereotypes in a billboard advertisement spotted at Vauxhall and Manor House stations. The advertisement depicts a bride, a black woman, enjoying a forkful of pasta seated next to a white man who is presumably the groom. The billboard appears to show the groom's white parents and an older black woman, seemingly the bride's mother. Some social media users criticize the advert for erasing black fathers. The author and Guardian contributor Nels Abbey wrote on X, "For my brothers and sisters, because believe it or not, black girls have dads too." The post has since gone viral. So there's the post there. One ex-user responded, "Total erasure of black fathers by such a mainstream brand is shocking. How did this get approved?" So, I may have gone over this a bit too quickly. So there's the advertisement again. So people are saying that it's perpetuating negative black stereotypes of absent black fathers is essentially people's gripes. Another wrote, yes, it's beautiful, the interracial relationship, and they wanted to keep 5 people on the table, but the erasure of black dads is not fair. In response, Hines told The Independent, we always appreciate members of the public's perspective on our campaigns. We understand how this ad could have unintentionally perpetuated negative stereotypes. We extend our deepest apologies and will continue to listen, learn, and improve to avoid this happening again in the future. Other X users interpreted the advertisement differently, highlighting a phrase in the bottom right-hand corner of the poster which reads, based on a true story. One wrote, wouldn't traditional wedding seating mean the bride's father sits next to the groom's mother, meaning the man on the left is the bride's father and the groom's father is missing? Another agreed. Seating arrangement for a top table at a wedding is the bride's father and the groom's mother next to the bride. The groom's father and bride's mother are next to the groom. It's the groom's father that is missing. The advertisements are reportedly part of a media campaign celebrating rule breakers who defy conventional behavior to enjoy Heinz' new range of pasta sauces. Boy. In the advertisement in question, the bride spills pasta sauce on her white wedding dress. The Guardian has contacted Heinz. Well, the Guardian has contacted Kraft Heinz for comment. So, what do you think is going on here? Do you think Heinz was in the wrong? Were they perpetuating stereotypes of the absence of black fathers? Should they have given an apology? Was the backlash warranted? What do you make of that?
Well, yeah, there's a lot going on with this. I'll start off by saying that I see a lot of advertisements do stuff like this. I'm not really surprised when I saw the ad. So I'm not surprised by the interracialness. I'm not surprised by a missing parent somewhere, for the black person. But then, the whole science of that's the groom's father's missing, and because of seating arrangements, and I don't get into that. There must be some UK stuff, or I don't know how that works. But from the naked eye, this does just look like where's the dark father? And so you don't necessarily see it. But again, I don't know why this one is sparking an outrage, because you could just watch a football game and watch commercials, and you see that go on in all kinds of ads for all kinds of companies where there's either one parent missing or whatever, for black people. So to me, I just take it as standard issue. Unfortunately, I would say, I guess, that this is just kind of how advertisements work. I've noticed this trend quite a bit. So I don't see the difference between this or anything else. Now, for them issuing an apology for it, why not? Because there's going to be enough people that do see this that will interpret it as racist, or it going viral online and people seeing a racist element in it. So you gotta have to issue this apology. So I think that these, personally, I do see, like I said, like, if you care to look, because I used to have that eye. Now when I see it, I go, but before, man, I was really what's that, Eddie Griffin on Undercover Brother. No, not Eddie Griffin. I was Dave Chappelle on Undercover Brother. Every damn thing was a conspiracy. Every damn thing was racist. So I had the trained eye to see the subconscious, subtle things that were being said, and subconsciously just looking at this. One is not going to say, "Oh, that's the groom's father over there." They're just going to look at all the lighter hues, associate that with the woman, associate that with the man, and see the two dark people and associate that with the dark people, and then automatically assume that the father's missing. So, I think that these things happen quite a bit. I'm not surprised. I think there was this last thing I said before I let you go. There was this commercial. I don't know what it was, but I'm sitting there watching college football, and they were kids. They were kids, and they would show the white kids with either with both parents. They would show a white kid with both parents. Then they'll show a black kid and they're just with their mom. Then they'll show another ethnicity of people. I forgot what it was, but they were with both parents. And I was like, now that's pretty interesting. So let's see when it loops back around. If they show another black kid, and sure enough, they showed another black kid, and they were just with one parent. And I said, now what are the odds of that? Now that commercial came in, went off. It was a real heartwarming commercial, but to me, these things are speaking to a certain part of people's brains. And so Heinz ain't the only one that do this, is my point. And so for whatever reason, this one went viral and people want to talk about it. And so they had to issue an apology. But if you will, bro, I'll text them to you. There's examples out there where this stuff is going on all the time. So to me, this is just standard corporate America advertisements. I see it all the time. And, hey, it is what it is, man. I don't expect anything different, to be honest. But what are your thoughts on Heinz? Hey, man, with this ad, is it racist? Is it something more sinister? Or is it just a regular thing? Should they apologize? What are your thoughts, man?
Well, they had to apologize because the internet was mad. So you can't be dismissive whenever the internet gets upset. You do have to be mad. Yeah, Kraft is Heinz, the Kraft Heinz company. They've only cared about specific messaging that impacts all communities for 4 years. Because every corporation has only cared about that for the last 4 years. No corporation cared about that before 2020. Since 2020, they've all started to care about that and talked about it publicly. I remember, after 2020, every corporation from Victoria's Secret to Nike to there wasn't a website I couldn't go to where I would visit the website and they would give me their pledge to racial diversity and their promise to do their part to help end racial inequality. So as far as I'm concerned, corporate America only recently started caring about this 4 years ago. 4 years is not enough time for you to be able to perfect your strategy for how you go about doing this. You're going to step in some mud because it takes a long time for you to be able to effectively show that you care about non-white people, essentially. And this is an example of a corporation that is only 4 years into their lifelong pledge for reducing racial inequality. And they created something not knowing that it might ruffle some feathers. Now, maybe 10 years from now, they'll know that they can't do this. But right now, as most corporations are only in the infancy stages of having the right kind of sensibilities to know how to effectively appeal to non-white audiences, they're going to step in some mud. This isn't the first one, and it won't be the last one. You see Land O'Lakes, and now called the Pearl Milling Company, formerly Aunt Jemima, they preemptively got ahead of it by getting rid of their mascots because they knew post 2020 they were going to be stepping into it. So, kudos to them. They preemptively got ahead of the game. We're going to remove the mascots from our packaging so that we can at least not have to deal with the backlash from those associated imageries anymore. But all of these corporations right now are still in the process of learning how to not piss off non-white people. And, I went to the Kraft Heinz website because, every corporate website now has a DEI policy. So Kraft Heinz DEI policy, which I am 100% sure was here well before they did this advertisement, reads, and I quote, Diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. Here at Kraft Heinz, we choose to welcome everyone at our table by valuing and respecting all voices. All employees have access to opportunities that enable them to contribute and grow. Our focus on diversity, inclusion, and belonging helps us connect with our consumers, attract and grow employees who are eager to leverage multiple perspectives to solve complex challenges, and innovate in an ever changing industry. At Kraft Heinz, we demand diversity. Our diversity, inclusion, and belonging strategy is an integral part of the People with Purpose part of our global enterprise strategy and is focused on four key areas: representation, communication and learning, culture, and communities. Now, I don't have access to the back end logs for their website, but I can 100. Let's leave 1% for standard deviation.
Okay.
I'm going to say I am going to say that I am 99% sure that that page on that website did not exist before 2020. These companies are still figuring out how to not piss off non-white people. It just so happens that that has become a priority within the past 4 years. Before, they didn't have to care about it because it didn't matter. The world was different. So they weren't held, their feet were not held to the fire if it was exposed that they didn't care. So now that they have to care by default, it's going to take some time before they figure out how to not step their foot in mud. And they step their foot in mud. Did it offend me personally? No, I got bigger fish to fry than to worry about a stupid ketchup advertisement. I don't care. But very much like you, my first thought was not, I wasn't doing mental gymnastics like the groom, the groom's mother sits here and
Right.
the bride's father sits there, blah, blah. I wasn't doing all of those mental gymnastics. All I saw was black ladies there. I don't see a black man there. So there appears to be an absence of the girl's parent, one of the girl's parents. That was my initial reaction to seeing this. Did it offend me? Not necessarily, because for whatever reason, that was canceled out by their glaring inclusion of an interracial marriage, which is another thing that these corporations are doing in an effort to appeal to non-white people. So that's what this is to me. This is just an instance of a corporate tactic gone wrong. They have to apologize because the internet says you do. You have to bend the knee. You can't get around that. It'll be worse if you don't say sorry. So they have to be sorry. But listen, people, these corporations are now 4 years into being mandated essentially to show that they care about non-white people. So they have to conduct these focus groups and come up with these advertising campaigns that are effective yet delicate enough to simultaneously achieve the growth of the company and societal and social sensitivities. And every once in a while, they're going to step their foot in mud because there's no exact science on how to do that. If you want to think that they're being racist now, I promise you, people, they were like that before 2020. They were like that. They've been like that this whole time. So if you want to get mad at them now, I guess you can. But in my opinion, it's wasted energy because you should have never thought differently about them in the first place.
Hey man, I agree 100%, bro. And I'll say this. So I can get on board with the fact that they're trying to appease people and gosh Lee, they just messed up. And so here's my thing. So now that we got this going, which I appreciate, so keep it up and keep trying to include people, right? But now I'm going to ask these people to start giving some natural ingredients. So so part of y'all mission statement in all of these corporations, part of y'all mission statements where y'all sitting here giving all these fancy words of how y'all going to just include people in advertisements, right? I also want y'all to be talking about how y'all going to be making real food items and not all these things that are difficult to pronounce. You can start off by getting rid of high fructose corn syrup and your ketchups and other things and your other condiments. So yeah, man, the world's waking up on that too. So start placating to that and start giving us some real ingredients in y'all's foods. But I'll tell you this, man. Yeah, it's all. I agree with the fact that it's all about placating the people's emotions and other things, with all this inclusion stuff, and it's very commercial. But what else would you expect from corporate America, man? So that's why at some point, I stopped getting so bent out of shape about it. I just said it is what it is. But the TV, it's like they live, so the TV, advertisement, magazines, everything in there is saying something, and it's saying something else. And I don't think anything is by happenstance. I don't operate that way. I think everything out here, they do go through focus groups, and they do go through things, and people approve and they don't, and things go out there intentionally, and they have to see what they can get away with. And what are their reasons behind that? I won't delve into those, but I think that these things don't happen by accident. I don't think they're just, oh, we're learning. Yeah, sorry guys, and it's like, yeah, you're learning to see what people gonna call out, and subconsciously when people look at these things, it is given a message, whether somebody want to agree with that or not. When somebody sees that, they saw that, and subconsciously, because it's on a back wall of a subway car thing. So, big deal, right? But if people really know how the subconscious mind work, man, whatever we see in our perception, we saw it, and it gets recorded, and it becomes a reality in some other type of way. So, on one hand, I'm glad it got called out. But on the other hand, I'm like, well, where y'all at calling out the rest of this stuff where they're doing that garbage? So hopefully, more people start calling out more things from these other advertisers that are doing these same type of tactics. I don't know why this got the steam that it did, but I just think it's interesting. And it's not, to me, I don't think it's race baiting. I don't think it's people overblowing things. I think that with this stuff that's out here going on, the subtle, man, I live in Texas, bro. The subtle racism that I experience on a daily basis when I just try to get regular things done is here. But they'll tell me that they all inclusive and this and this and that, but it happens. So to me, I think that this is just one of those subtle things that I'm not gonna dig too much into, but it happens, and I'm not gonna sit here and act like it don't. But I agree with your point to where that they've recently had to really up the ante on including us in stuff, and that I do think that there is some type of ignorance that's going on. But I think the ignorance is, I think the ignorance that they have sometimes isn't so much. So, well, it is what it is with this situation. But for me, am I going to get bent out of shape about this? As I mentioned, man, I got over this stuff years ago. I just more or less laugh at it now. So,
well, when I speak on these corporations that have to figure this out on the fly, I'm not saying that they're figuring out on the fly and instituting these policies because they genuinely want to be a part of making the world a better place. They're doing it because they have to, because it's counterintuitive to being successful in today's corporate world if you don't. So you can't continue to create campaigns that don't try to appeal to everybody, because that's counterintuitive to the growth of the company. It isn't that they genuinely care about it. That's my point. Yeah, so like my whole thing is, don't fall into the trap of believing that these corporations actually care about this stuff. It's literally, like, not literally because it's not like a law, but it's practically a mandate. It's an implied mandate. It's not an actual rule, but if you don't do it, you're worse off. Like, create advertisements and go about creating campaigns that are insensitive to people racially, and see how far that gets you.
Or sexually.
So right. Yeah. So it's like, you better play ball, because if you don't, you're worse off for it. But do I believe that they care necessarily? Not really. It's just in the best interest of doing business. It's why I roll my eyes at the NFL. They do it too. And I don't care how much money they give or whatever the case may be, because at the end of the day, until there are here's the bottom line with this. Here's how you know. This is me speaking. This is JV Wynn's opinion. So this is my opinion. This is not Dogon's opinion. This is my opinion. I will believe that people really do care about this stuff the day that you see more non-white people who own stuff. So, like, let's look at the NFL, for example. And this day will never happen, which is why I believe we'll never live in this world. Until there are more non-white owners than white owners that are owning NFL teams, I won't believe that they actually care. They're just doing it in order to be able to funnel the agenda. Until at least 51%. Let's just go with the 51-49 rule. Until at least 51% of major international corporations have CEOs that are not white, I'm not going to think that they actually care. Like the leadership at the top, the people who make the vast majority of the money at the top, the people who eat the most when it comes to these corporations are people who are mandated essentially to care about this kind of thing because it's in their best interest to care about it because they have to, because of the climate of the world. But I personally would believe that it was a real thing if the people who were in charge, if the people who were in positions of leadership, if the people who ran the corporations, if the CEOs, at least 51% of them comprised communities that are actually affected by some of the things that these corporations want to help fix. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So until we live in that world, I'm always going to roll my eyes at this stuff and say, well, they got to do it because they got to. But to get upset about it, for me, I don't really care because I never believed them to begin with.
Yeah, agree, bro. And yeah, this stuff used to drive me up a wall. Not so well, kind of, sort of. But yeah, like I said, man, nowadays I look at it and I go, what are you gonna do? We don't own the damn company.
Yeah, so, exactly. We don't. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't expect anything else. So yeah. But yeah, it happens that way. But I was just bringing up the point for people out there that don't think that these things happen more often than this one thing. That was my point, is that it happens all the time. So
this to me is water under the bridge. Mm-hmm. Like until Kraft Heinz has a black CEO, to me is water under the bridge. I don't care. I don't care.
And that'd be a DEI hire. So
right, yeah, like until
they don't really have an opinion either.
Yeah, until the NFL has a black commissioner, to me, I don't care what they do. Until at least 51% of the owners are not white, I'm not going to care what they do. Until 51% of these international corporations are not run by people who aren't white, I don't care what they do. Like, to me, this is water under the bridge. I don't care.
Agreed, bro.
All right, next up, we're going to talk about comments made by Method Man with respect to mental health. So Fat Joe was given a talk show on Stars. The name of the show is called Fat Joe Talks. So it's a hell of a creative name, if you ask me. But the name of the show is called Fat Joe Talks. And on the first episode of Fat Joe Talks, Method Man was a guest, and they got into talking about mental health situations and depression and how they cope and deal with that. So this says Method Man opens up about lifelong battle with depression. It never really goes away. Rapper turned actor Method Man, born Clifford Smith, is opening up about his lifelong battle with depression, claiming it never really goes away. While recently speaking with rapper Fat Joe on his new Star series Fat Joe Talks, Method Man got real about mental health and much more. Starting off the segment, the two talked about the gut feeling you get when someone crosses your mind and you think to check up on them. So I'm going to actually skip through this because I'm going to actually play the clips. Fat Joe continued to reflect on his own experience with depression, recalling how he was in a dark space when he cumulatively lost his sister, grandfather, and fellow rapper Big Pun. Method Man offered his compassion and said, I can only imagine. Fat Joe added, I was like 2 years straight going to therapists. Method Man asked him if he was aggressive towards others like he was during his bouts, but he replied, nah, but I went through it. I never tried to kill myself or thought about it, but I was sleeping in the bathtub with no water running, looking up at the ceiling. I went to a therapist and it took me 2 years of beating myself up. So I tell people, you can be in a gang, you can be in anything. And if somebody tries to off you, you can move to another state. But when you're fighting, you're fighting your own brain. It's with you all the time. Method Man agreed and went on to explain how hard it is to cope when you start crying out for help and people look at it as a facade or don't know how to help. So here is a bit of that exchange between these two guys.
The point I'm trying to make is every now and then you get a thought about, damn, I wonder what this person's doing. Act on it. Call them.
Yeah.
See how they doing, or find some way to get in contact with them. It never hurts. You have no idea how much that could mean to them. Because I go through these bouts with certain shit. And
do you still go through that?
Yeah. It never really goes away. It never really goes away. You have, like I said, I have bouts with it and things. And Dave saw that. And he just sent me a text message. Beautiful text message.
Love.
Yeah. And it was like, it spoke to me big time. And all I could put was all of this with a heart emoji. And I don't even give heart emojis, son. But yeah.
It felt good to know that somebody's thinking about you or your well-being or your health. I went through depression after my sister died, Pun died, my grandfather at the same time.
I can only imagine.
So I was like 2 years straight going to therapists, and it could be a sunny day, the shit look dark outside. And what I try to tell
all right, I think there might be a little more. I won't play the whole thing.
People is
was it an aggressive type of depression?
No, I went through it.
Yeah.
Like I never tried to kill myself or never even thought about that.
But I mean aggressive towards the ones around.
I was
aggressive.
I was just sleeping. I was sleeping in the bathtub with no water running.
Wow. Yeah.
Looking up at the ceiling. And I went to a therapist and it took me 2 years of beating myself up. And so I tell people, you could be in a gang, you could be in anything. Somebody trying to kill you, just move to another state.
Another state, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But when you fighting your own brain, it's with you all the time. Absolutely. So you go to the island, you could be in the Fiji island with the bluest water, but you're still fighting that demon.
You are. But the illest one is when you do these displays as a cry for help and people, some see it and just feel like it's a facade, or I don't know how they take it, but there's a lot of times those people don't get help. I mean, in the bathtub, that's
no. All right, so that's pretty much the gist of it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, both of these guys respectively went through some dark times and lamented seeking out professional help, going to see a therapist to help them get through it all. So I think we're still in a place in society where therapy is, I think it's becoming more. I think it's becoming more of a consideration that people are taking seriously earlier on during their bouts with mental health challenges. But I still think that for a lot of people, something like this is a last resort. Speaking in terms of like seeking out help in that regard, going to therapy. And these are two machismo guys in the rap game who both lament their struggles with this stuff and how they needed that help and they needed that support system and they needed the therapy from that. So what did you make of that exchange there between these Method Man and Joey Crack? Friend of the channel, I would say. We talked about Joey Crack. Joey Crack is a friend of the channel.
Yeah, honestly, man, I was a little bit surprised to hear both of them speak that way. I thought it was just going to be Meth talking that, because I saw the article title. But so I thought it was just going to be Method Man talking that. But when Fat Joe chimed in with it, and I'm like, oh, look at these guys. And like you said, two machismos, man, really Fat Joe for that matter, who was a friend of the channel for a reason, because he's always talking cash money. He's always talking cash money. He's always talking like he's the biggest, baddest man around. And so my takeaway for this, outside of, get help if you need it. Honestly, I think a lot of people need help. You know what I'm saying? But you know, my takeaway for this is for people out there that think that these entertainers got it all together. And a lot of people take the facade that these people present, whether they're on their IG pages, whether they're in a music video, whether they're in a TV show like Method Man, you know, and they take all of these characters and they just think that, you know, and they're pretty sure that these guys are getting a good check for it. Every time you see them, they're in a nice car, you know, and everybody thinks that they got it all together. But you know, for them to say that, hey man, I got dark moments, and that was powerful. What Fat Joe said that, hey man, if I'm in Fiji, man, that water crystal blue, and I'm still going through it. And yeah, man, that's real stuff. So for all those people out there that love to compare and contrast, love to look at people on Instagram and compare their lives, and not even celebrities, just everyday people, you know, and compare themselves to these people just because they're an influencer and they got that car for free, or they're only driving it around for their page, you know, and you think that they got it all popping, and they don't. And honestly, man, if you're living in the hells of North America, man, um, you know, you've been exposed to all kinds of stimuli that will put you in a dark place. When you know, I got my, yeah, you know, for David Banner out there, you know, I got my degree in psychology. Okay, all right. So while I was taking my psychology courses, and I'm sitting there, you know, hearing this stuff from the professor, and I'm like, yo, I do some of this. You know, we're going through the DSM, and we're going through all of these things that, you know, people get, you know, Baker acted for. And I'm sitting there like, hey man, I low key do that. And everybody in class was like that. And then so the professor had to stop everybody and go, hey, all right, relax. All right. There's, you know, everybody do a little bit of some of these things, okay? But it's for the extreme cases of these, you know, there's a spectrum, but this is for the extreme people on a spectrum where it's affecting their lives and everybody else's life around them. So it's good that you guys are picking up that you have some of these things. All right. So try working on it, you know. And as I'm going through these courses and I'm learning about these various disorders, I'm learning how the brain works and how people thought patterns can go left at one event when they were 8 years old. You know, I was like, wait, why am I learning this in my you know, my like major in college? I wasn't even learning this in my first 2 years in college. This was gated until I actually got into my major. I was like, people need to learn this in elementary school on how their brain works and how their brain can go left and how they need to, you know, various coping strategies, you know. And so these things are not taught. And there's a lot of people going through trauma all the time. All right. So there's a lot of hurt people out there, and they're just in the world making decisions. You're interacting with them. I'm interacting. They're on the internet. Trust me, if you read the comment section anywhere, all right, you'll see there's a lot of hurt people in the world. All right. So so for these guys to be out here talking about it instead of, you know, banging on their chest and hollering that they're you know, Superman walking, all right, for them to actually open up and say that, hey man, I actually went through some struggles. Hopefully some other brothers out here or anybody else that's watching could see it and like, hey man, you know what, maybe I got to get myself together. Maybe I should, you know, go see somebody because I ain't been right. You know, Fat Joe was sleeping in the bathtub, you know, I was sleeping in a car or whatever. You know, maybe I need that. And it's like, yeah man, maybe you do. So most likely you do. And that's not an indictment to anybody. That's just because everybody's gone through something. And so when you go through something, you're going to need help to get up out of that. And you could have went through something 13 years ago and it's still knocking at your door. So there's ways that, you know, you can get rid of that, if you will. So, but yeah, what are your thoughts, man, on Method Man, Fat Joe, talking about some deep stuff, mental health, man? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a good thing that they come from a generation that they come from where, you know, they still seek out interpersonal face-to-face communication and human contact, and they don't use the internet as their therapist. Not to say that there aren't people their age who don't use the internet as
Right.
their therapist, because there are, but I think that the general, if there was a diaspora for people who seek out unofficial help versus official help, it'll look like, certain generations have a higher likelihood to kind of seek out self-help, via a therapy mode online and things of that nature. Like the comparison truly is the thief of joy. And I think one of the unintended consequences of social media specifically, but the internet in general, is that it has cultivated an environment in which the general decline and deteriorations of people's general mental state has become exacerbated. I think it's an unintended consequence of social media, meaning when these people were creating these apps, when they were creating Facebook and Instagram and all of this other stuff, they genuinely thought that they were creating something that was great for the world. That's what they thought, but they could not have accounted for some of the negative ways that their creations would eventually impact the world. And I think that the disease of comparison is one of those ways that their creations have impacted the world negatively. I've mentioned this before on this channel, just to kind of speak on my own personal mental health journeys. I realized a long time ago that my personal mental makeup isn't strong enough to be constantly inundated with images and videos and messages online and on social media, and for me to be able to remain above the fray on all of that. Maybe a stronger person than me can take that. Me personally, I can't take that. So I realize the more time I spend on Instagram looking at women I can't date, the more time I spend on Instagram looking at what other people are doing and the trips that they're taking and the cars that they're buying or the houses that they're living in, the longer I spend on YouTube and Instagram watching Kevin Samuels videos, the more I started to dislike myself. So I realized the only way for me to feel better about myself is to unfollow all that stuff and to not look at it and to not consume it as much. So like I purged myself of all of it and I feel better about myself ever since. Like I'm a happier person. I'm literally less depressed because I am not seeing a bunch of half-naked women with big butts and tiny waists flood my feeds all the time. And I'm not on YouTube always looking at these red pill podcasts. And back in the day when Kevin Samuels was still doing his thing, watching these Kevin Samuels videos, listening to women talk about how they can't date a man if he doesn't make 6 figures a year. So like I personally had to position myself to not consume so much of that because it was deteriorating my mental health. I was inevitably comparing myself to other people who were in those positions. So whenever I was on Instagram seeing these posts and I was looking at people I went to elementary school with or middle school with or whatever, and they're doing their thing and they're traveling and they're making all this money, I was saying to myself, I am failing at life because I'm not doing that and they are. When I was seeing the women hop on these podcasts being all toxic, talking about how they can't talk to a guy if he doesn't make $100,000 or more or is in at least 6'4" tall, I was comparing myself to men who do make that much money and who are that tall. And as a result, I was hating myself in the process because there's really nothing wrong with me. I'm fly as hell. So what I had to do was turn that shit off because it was compromising my mental health. The reason why I'm even bringing this up is because I feel as though there are millions, if not billions, of other people, speaking to your point, about how there's a lot of people who you talk to and you interact with, and their mental health state is in a state of decline and you wouldn't even know it. I believe that there are millions, if not billions, of other people who live in this shell on a daily basis, constantly consuming themselves with these types of messages that lead to their own self-destructive thoughts.
Yes.
And they don't have the wherewithal to get away from it. They think they need to keep being on Instagram all the time. They need to keep being on TikTok all the time. They need to be on Facebook all the time. Like, they feel like they need to be on these platforms or else they're missing out.
Mm-hmm.
So they feel like they need to stay on Instagram and follow this Instagram model and follow this fitness influencer and follow all of these people. They feel like they have to look at these podcasts. They feel like they got to look at Fresh and Fit. Like, if there's men out there who feel like they need to be up on game. And how can I stay up on game? By watching Fresh and Fit. But what happens during those 2 hours that you're watching their live stream? You're seeing all of these chicks that you think you want to date talk about how they need to be with a man who does all the things that you're not. And in the process, how does that make you feel about yourself? If you're being completely honest, it's not making you feel very good about yourself. So if you're going to live in the matrix where you're constantly consuming this stuff all the time, sir or ma'am, I suggest you go to therapy. I suggest you counterbalance your consumption of these toxic messages with professional help. And my personal speculation, anecdotally, is I feel like there are billions of people out there living like this every day. And they, a lot of them are younger people who are growing up with it, so they don't even know that they're compromising their mental state by doing it. It's become so ubiquitous, and it's been a part of their reality for so long that they don't even know that what they're doing is goofy. Mm-hmm. They don't even know. Mm-hmm. And we just did a video last week talking about the doctor who broke it down scientifically. Mm-hmm. How people are externalizing their self-worth and how that's leading to their own self-destructive thoughts. Yep. So you don't have to take our word for it. You can listen to people like him. And consuming this stuff so often leads to people developing their narcissistic tendencies. And narcissistic personality disorder is an actual disorder in the DSM-5, to reference the DSM. So like, this stuff is happening, and these two guys, if their words serve any purpose, it is to the litany of people out there who worship the ground that these rappers walk on. And maybe they feel as though if a rapper says it, it's okay for me to do it. So maybe some of these people who love these rappers and these entertainers so much, if they're talking about how they sought professional help to help manage and cope with and deal with their deteriorating mental state, then maybe they'll do it too. Because speaking of FAMU, I spent the semester at FAMU. And shouts out to Dr. Valerie White. I'll never forget this lady. She was one of my journalism professors when I co-opted between FSU and FAMU doing journalism courses. And one of the things that she said to me was, there are so many people walking around operating in society who shouldn't be, and you'll never know it. And she put it very succinctly, but it was profound the way she put it. There are a lot of unhinged people operating in society every day.
Yep.
And a lot of these people operating in society every day, my concern is there wasn't some inciting event or some overwhelming trauma that caused their mental status to deteriorate. They engage in self-destructive behaviors and habits every day. That
Correct.
Leads to a gradual decline in their mental status.
Yes.
They're on Instagram 3 hours a day. They're on TikTok 2 hours a day. And I know I'm sounding like the old guy blaming social media for the world's problems. Hey, listen, everything's in moderation, but you cannot sit here and deny the unintended consequences of some of these applications. Mm-hmm. It's messed up a lot of people.
Yeah.
It has, myself included. And I'm the guy gas bagging on a microphone. But I had to learn how to get away from this stuff because it was messing me up. So it ain't a man, woman thing, a race thing. It's an everybody thing. If you insist on continuing to remain plugged in, then I would highly advise, as Method Man did and as Fat Joe did for 2 years, to seek out that professional help. You might not think you need it because you think you're good and you're not thinking about unaliving yourself, or you're not thinking about running up in a school, or you're not thinking about doing any of the crazy stuff that you see on the news every day. But that doesn't mean that you're not in a it doesn't mean that you're not in a compromised state. You just don't realize it because the world around you has told you since the time that you were able to think that you need to be on all this stuff all the time. But trust me, if you're on all this stuff all the time, you're amongst those who are probably in need of sitting on somebody's couch and having a conversation.
Hey man, well said, bro. And and Fat Joe and Method Man, they're in a different generation. They're in a generation that's older than ours. And so one would say that they spend less hours probably on these devices than these younger people that you mentioned. But still, man, what I think for sure, because your point is well taken, and I think that social media has accelerated this monster and normalized a lot of these crazy ways that people are thinking. And so it gave these younger people a pass to do the dumb stuff that they're seeing. And the older people that are, just partaking in this or so happens or whatever, they were still victims of their own forms of mind control and other things, and just regular everyday trauma growing up. All right. Because everybody grew up in this capitalistic world where, everybody's getting dunked on in one way or another and they can't see it. And so Method Man, they come from a different generation. And, the younger people are talking more about mental health now. These athletes and, they'll talk about their mental health and they don't want to play because of their mental health and they get clowned for it. But it's like, hey, man, he ain't right. Zion don't feel like Zion today. All right. So they get clowned for it. But, these younger people, I see, they are more inclined to speak up now because, mental health is like a thing. It's like just mental health is a buzzword. So I think that this is a, cross-generational thing, but I do agree with you that it has accelerated, for the young people that just grew up on this. They don't know a world outside of social media. And social media is a cesspool of comparison and narcissism and all type of crazy stuff. It's every vice you need is on the internet. So, and wise words from the woman that you said, man, that those people are driving in traffic. Those are the people that cut you off in traffic. That's that rude cashier you dealt with. That's everybody. Yeah. And so, last week I was telling, I was saying that more or less that, these things come off as they test you. These people test you out here. But these people that's testing you are some hurt people, man. These people went through stuff. And if you heard their story, you would know why they acting like that now. So it's not to give everybody a pass. It's just to know that, hey, man, it's some wild people in the world that done went through some wild stuff and they ain't nowhere close to getting help. So, for you and yours, if you're going through something, you ain't the only one, man. There's a lot of people out here putting up a good front in life and acting like they don't go through no dark times, Yeah. And that's why I was shocked that, two guys that, on a microphone, you wouldn't think that these guys had a bad day ever. And, but for them to say, hey, man, I went through it myself. Like you said, for these people out here that do this worship out here, man, in one way or another, it could be your favorite athlete. For them to say, hey, man, I had those moments and I went and got help and y'all should get help too. Don't go through this alone. Because, it don't have to be to the point to where unaliving's a thing, but it could definitely be to the point where, now you're eating stuff you ain't supposed to be eating, smoking something.
Yeah, it shouldn't. Yeah, it shouldn't get to that point is the thing. Yeah, there's gradual stages of it. And just because you don't reach that extreme point doesn't mean that you're not suffering.
Exactly.
So people need to recognize that. But I just kind of feel like people don't even realize that there is suffering that's taking place.
Right.
it's a crazy thing, but I really do think that like most people don't even know that they are suffering because it's like that they've accepted that as the baseline form of existence to constantly wake up and be on these devices and engage in comparison and contrast every day. Like that is the world that we live in. So just accept it. And you don't have to accept that, but just know that if you do accept it, your status is deteriorating. You know, you're not supposed to be doing that all the time. That's an unhealthy habit.
Hey, what Pastor DDG said, man? If you ain't as lit as the next person, if you ain't got more money than the next person, you ain't popping. Yeah, man. That's that crazy stuff, man.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
So just watch yourselves out here, y'all, and you know, don't be afraid to talk somebody if they out your budget. It's all good, man. But just like how Method Man said, you know, there was parts of him that said, "Man, I wonder how so and so is doing," and he just didn't have it in him to pick up the phone and call. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I've been in those situations too, where you know what I'm saying. I wonder how XYZ was doing. I ain't even text him. You know, you just send a text, bro. And you know, I'll get into those funks. So if there's somebody out there that you could talk to, lean on a little bit, you know, not dump all your trash on. All right, but somebody you can lean on, somebody that can brighten your day, man, it really helps, man. And you know, get help any way you can and be more communal and less in these isolation boxes, which these phone devices, video games, and everything else seem to be doing to people. So
yeah,
man.
The greatest irony of social media and the internet is that they were applications that fostered communication, but in the process of fostering communication, they've made people more insular and impersonal.
Yep.
So that's the tremendous irony inherent in all forms of social media. I don't care which one you spotlight, they're all like that. They've just made people impersonal in general. And I want to take one thing back. I said, you know, older generations are more likely than not to seek out professional help as opposed to like younger generations who are more likely to use the internet and social media as their therapist. I want to retract that. Everyone does that. That's not really an age thing. Everybody's out here doing that. So I want to go ahead and take that.
Yeah, bro.
I thought about that. It ain't young people or old people exclusively that's doing it. Everybody's doing that.
If you on the internet and you got a username,
yeah.
you probably out here wild. Hey, man.
Yeah.
Don't dig up my comments from 2013, y'all. Please don't do that.
Yeah. No, there's going to be less of a breadcrumb trail for me on that, because I never made it to the point where I was commenting, but I definitely had my phase, man. I had my phase. I was following all of the lit IG models several years ago. So hey, man, I am very glad that I purged that out of my system.
It's all good, but dog, we all did it.
Last but not least, we are going to discuss the NCAA, which has decided that it's going to crack down on gun simulated celebrations in college football. Ooh. Apparently, this has become a problem. The NFL was already cracking down on it, and now college football is starting to crack down on it because players are doing it more. If you're not a college football fan, you're probably not aware that this is a thing. But pretty much every game now, well, not moving forward, but up until now, probably, if a player made a great play, it didn't even have to be a touchdown. It could have been a sack, an interception, a fumble. Guys were doing this celebrate. Yeah, they were yeah, a tackle. It could have been a tackle. Guys are getting up and flogging, you know, simulating as if they're shooting a gun. So NCAA is cracking down on this. They're not with it. Well, not the NCAA, but college football is cracking down on this because they're not with it anymore. They want to get rid of this kind of unsportsmanlike conduct in college football. So this says college football cracks down on gun-related celebrations amid growing trend. It's important we address it. Minnesota defensive back Justin Wally receiving a 15-yard penalty for simulating brandishing a weapon seemed to catch Gophers head coach PJ Fleck off guard, but it has been a point of emphasis in recent Big Ten coaches' meetings that it could be called. Wally received the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty late in Minnesota's 24-17 win over number 11 USC after the senior defensive back lifted up his shirt to allegedly simulate holding a gun in his waist. Fleck didn't like the call, and Gophers teammate Coy Perrick later called the penalty terrible. But college coaches nationwide, including in the Big Ten and SEC, have recently been warned it was going to be enforced to try to curtail gun-related celebrations. So here is one of those celebrations.
No, that's the ref here that's calling that thing.
Well, the ref called it. Okay, so I'll keep going. Brandishing a weapon isn't an automatic unsportsmanlike penalty the way simulating the firing of a weapon is, but it falls under taunting. That makes it a judgment call that makes it a judgment call of the official and is a point of emphasis as the celebration starts to crop up around the country. Steve Shaw, the national coordinator of officials, discussed it in recent weeks with conference official coordinators who then took it back to their leagues, coaches, and administrators. In just the last couple weeks, it was emphasized in both the Big Ten and SEC that gun-related celebrations were a major no-no and would result in a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. I don't recall last year ever seeing brandishing a weapon, Shaw told CBS Sports. So what happens is a couple people do it, a couple people see it, and it starts to grow. That's why we're just trying to set expectations with everybody so they know where we are with all of it. Brandishing a weapon can result in a misdemeanor or a felony offense, depending on the state and the perceived intent, and is defined by law as to display all or part of the firearm or otherwise make the presence of the firearm known to another person in order to intimidate that person, regardless of whether the firearm is directly visible to that person. Wally was one of two gun-related celebration penalties that elicited a lot of attention and reaction over the weekend. The more egregious, or at least more obvious, came in the South Carolina Ole Miss game when Gamecocks freshman Dylan Stewart simulated firing multiple shotgun blasts at Rebels quarterback Jackson Dart after sacking him. Simulating the firing of a weapon is in the rule book and an automatic 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty every time. So here is that penalty in question. Yeah, I should be able to make it full screen.
Like what?
So yeah, he emptied the clip on that boy. After the game, when South Carolina head coach Shane Beamer was asked if he addressed it with Stewart, he gave a frustrating one-word answer: yes. From a broader perspective, we don't want to condone any kind of gun violence as part of our game. We can't write a rule for everything because our players are going to be creative and we don't know what's coming next week. But when we see something like this begin to get a foothold, it's important that we address it as a group. So what do you make of college football? It sounds like this is being left up to the conferences to police it how they want. But at least the Big Ten and the SEC, which are the two biggest conferences in college football, are cracking down on this. What are your thoughts on them cracking down on the brandishing of firearms celebration?
Hey, man, it's rare that college football does anything that I like. But this, I'm all in on this. I'm in favor of penalizing these guys for this. And it got to the point to this South Carolina, because that was the most egregious. They said the most egregious or the most obvious, but I saw some pretty bad ones too. But this one took the cake for me. So there's this trend going on, and it's been going on all college football season on TikTok. They call them YNs, for young N-words, and they say they're wilding. These YNs are wilding. And it's a touchdown celebration. They're simulating guns. They're lifting up waistbands after they score or after they get a pass breakup. I like the seatbelt one, or the, what I'm saying? Like, you got them strapped in. Like, I like that. But the lifting up the shirt that say that, hey man, I got it on me. It's like, nah, man. And honestly, bro, I think this is all that op rap. I think all this op rap, it really got these young guys gassed up, man, in the wrong kind of way. Because they really listen to all of that stuff, man. And it's taking shape. And another thing is that, you know what I'm saying? Like, some of these guys look like they really would do that. Like, there's some people are doing it on the sidelines. Like, they really look like they out of their mind. Like, they would actually do this. They wouldn't. But if he wasn't playing football, he might. And the way that this guy did it, this South Carolina dude, he was just so geeked about it. Like, he just couldn't wait to do it. You know what I'm saying? So this is what happens when CTE gets involved with crazy celebrations. I hate every bit of it. To me, it's, I sound like grandpa. I don't care, man. To me, it's classless. It's undisciplined. Because to me, football is about, if you're playing it right, it's a disciplined sport. It's a sport of, will and other things. And all of these, I don't mind celebrations. But to be doing these kinds of celebrations, and this guy was losing 20-something to 6. And he's still sitting there and he did that. So I couldn't stand any of this stuff. So I'll be excited. And I'm glad the NFL started doing it too, because the guys in the NFL were doing it. And, after I saw it happen a few times this weekend, and guys will go, what did I do? It's like, bro, you can do first down. I don't mind first down. But you don't have to, first down. Like, bro, like, let's just play football, can we? You know what I'm saying? And so I hated every bit of it. I'm glad they're cracking down on that stuff. These guys are just acting like idiots, man. So I don't like anything about it. And it's rare that I like what college football does. It's rare that I like what officials do and throw flags on, because I'm all for celebrations, but simulating clapping each other, I think that's the wildest thing ever. But what are your thoughts, man, on these kids doing the celebrations, them cracking down on it? What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I'm with you. I hate it. I wouldn't be mad if they said if you do it twice, you're thrown out of the game.
Yeah,
like I wouldn't be upset if they said if you get flagged for it twice in the same game, on the second flag, you're disqualified.
I agree.
I wouldn't be mad at that at all. I remember years ago. Remember Josh Norman, the DB, Josh Norman?
Yeah.
So like I remember at the time, I think he was playing at the time they were still the Redskins, I believe. And he made a tackle and he simulated pulling a bow out of a quiver and shooting a bow and arrow. And didn't shoot it at the guy he tackled. He just did it as a celebratory thing, like he shot a bow and arrow in the air. And they flagged him for that. And at the time, I was like, oh, that's kind of weak. I mean,
yeah,
bow and arrow, that's kind of cool. It's a bow and arrow.
Right.
But the NFL will flag you for that. So if the NFL is going to flag somebody for simulating shooting a bow and arrow, not at an intended target, then you best believe that college football kids should be getting flagged for simulating shooting guns.
Right.
Like, this is stupid. And the thing about this that bothers me the most, see, I don't even like the fact that coach used the word creative to describe the type of celebration, because what's going to happen, this is what's going to happen.
I know it.
This is what's going to happen. So now let me ask you a question, and I'm asking for my edification because I haven't seen this, but maybe I missed a few. So I'm going to ask you, have you seen any non-black players do this?
No.
Okay, me neither. So what's going to end up happening is if this continues to grow wings and it continues to get talked about, now what we're going to do is we're going to start having a conversation about how college football is trying to, stymie the creativity of the black players by not allowing them to simulate shooting guns.
Oh boy.
That's what's going to happen, because creativity is one of those cold words. It's like it's one of those words that's used to kind of say bad behavior is not really bad behavior because it's this. So we should just allow it all because they're just doing that thing. It's like expression. We talked last week about the paint and nails thing. Yeah, let your son paint his nail. Yeah, let your son paint his nails. Why? Because he's expressing himself. It's expressiveness. So expression, that's another one of those code words. So in other words, this should be okay because the kids are because the players are being creative. Creative, a code word for let them do whatever the hell they want, because it's creative. And since it's only black players doing this, because it's only going to be the black players pretending like they're shooting somebody. So the thing is, there's going to be this ensuing conversation about how college football has it out against the black players by stymieing their creativity because it doesn't want to allow them to do this kind of celebration. And when that happens, I'm going to roll my eyes and throw up in my mouth. Because why is that creative?
Right.
So like I don't like that Pandora's box being potentially open. Like, this guy is the leader of the team. He's the head coach. And you're referring to that form of celebration as creativity. Others are going to follow suit. Now we're coding that kind of ridiculousness as creative.
Because it ain't.
And it's going to have a racial undertone because only the black players are doing it. So what's going to happen is we're going to sit here and have to go through another ridiculous, racially involved conversation about college football when it has nothing to do with race and it has everything to do with human decency.
Exactly.
Why is that? Why does that have to be creative? Why is that creative? Why do you even have to do it?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
I
agree with you. I hope that I never see it again. And if they insist on continuing to do it, flag them. And if they do it again, kick them out the game. I wouldn't be mad if they got DQ'd for it.
No,
targeting penalties offend me less than that.
Agreed.
Seriously. So yeah, it needs to go. It needs to go. But we're in this world where we want to socially deconstruct everything out here. So here we go again. Don't stop them from doing that kind of celebration. That's them expressing themselves creatively on the field. It's BS, and I don't stand for it. But there will be those apologists who do.
Yeah, I mean, I hear it, man. And because my part about it was, I was hoping that they would just disqualify him because it doesn't serve any place. And football is the field where these guys that did come up from these areas, because they can use this, I'm just expressing where I come from. That's what the football field was. It was a safe place for us to go play, let out those frustrations, and go release that and somehow, some way make it to the league or whatever. But
it was an escape.
It was an escape. Don't bring the streets to the football field. And I hate it when they would just do it when they scored and, simulating, shooting, and, all that stuff. I'm like, I don't like that. I'm surprised they ain't throw flags in. But I knew at some point, once they started doing the lifting up the shirt thing, I knew at some point it was going to graduate into the point where they're going to act like they're literally holding their hands up on somebody else's face, like how this guy did. And he was so dramatic and drastic with it. Like, he couldn't wait to pull this out. He couldn't. And if they allowed this, you can only imagine what was going to happen next week. So, yeah, man, I'm glad this is happening. Call me grandpa, call me whatever, man. No,
whatever.
Yeah, man, this doesn't belong in my game, bro. Like, I didn't like it from the jump. You know what I'm saying? And it was some stuff the NBA players were doing too that were I can't remember at this time. But it's stuff that they be doing too that is like, hey man, I don't care for that either, man. So yeah, get the violence off the field, get the violence off the court. Just go play football. You know what I'm saying? And it's a violent enough sport. So we don't need y'all doing this extra stuff.
Right, but there are celebrations that I always said to myself, like, man, like he really he really went in on that boy. Like he embarrassed him. And it doesn't even have to get as close as doing something like this.
Exactly.
So like I don't like it. And I don't like the subtle invocation of creativity juxtaposed to that kind of action. I don't like that.
Right.
I don't like that, because now you're insinuating that to deny somebody from doing that is to hinder their creativity, and I'm bothered by that. And it becomes further complicated because of the racial undertones, because it's only the black players who are doing it.
Yeah.
So now if somebody speaks out against it, they have to deal with being checked for their latent racism now.
Yeah.
So it's all kind of garbage that goes into this, and it's ridiculous. So hopefully the penalties are enough to just completely eliminate it. And if not, then start issuing disqualifications. Kick them out the game.
Yeah.
Kick them out the game. Because physically, do I want to see a targeting penalty? No, because somebody can get seriously hurt.
Right.
But as a viewer, I'm less offended by targeting penalties than seeing somebody do this.
Agreed.
Because
well, let me say this, because even some of the targeting ones are accidental,
right?
Especially now, since these guys know it's a rule, they're just really, everybody's just lowering helmets, and it's helmet to helmet. But this is another form of showboating that, upstaging, and it's just disrespectful and disgusting. This doesn't fly. This wouldn't fly anywhere else. You do this at a club, you do this at a playground, you do this anywhere else. It's fighting. It's on site. But you're doing this on a football field? Like, I don't like it, man.
Yeah. And you best believe that somewhere in America, there's some ignorant person who's watching the game with their kid, and they're seeing those guys do that, and they're telling their kid, you see how they act? So that's going down. I just don't like it. So I hope it goes away. And I hope that they penalize it. And if it continues, I wouldn't be mad if they DQ'd those guys for it.
Get them out of the game.
Yeah, just kick them out. Get rid of them.
Yeah, and get off my lawn too, you bastard.
Yeah. Now they'll probably call you an old guy, or you out of touch, or they'll want to try and blame society. They'll blame society and racism, and they'll say, "Oh, that's why they're doing that." So they'll go that whole route. They'll blame white supremacy. They'll blame Donald Trump. There'll be a lot of the placaters who are just gonna say, "Oh, well, it's this thing's fault why those guys are doing that." Whatever, man. Get out of here. Get off my lawn too, and it's very well manicured.
Exactly.
But on that note, man, we are going to go ahead and close out another stream in the books. A great episode. My name is JV Wins. That is, of course, Dogon SS. If this is your first time checking out our channel and you have not already done so, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, like the video, and leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about the commentary in this or any of the other videos. We certainly appreciate the engagement. Check us out on the Instagram page at Conapproach, CONAPPROACH. I am also on Instagram at JVWins, JVWINS. And pretty soon we will make these episodes available to anyone wherever you get your podcasts. So check us out wherever available. We certainly appreciate the support as we continue to kick this logical content. Until next time, as I always like to say, man, think for yourself. Don't be a group thinker. And even though it's a down year, yeah, damn it, I'm going to say it. Go Seminoles. Go Dolphins. And in a couple of weeks, go Heat.
Oh man, yeah, damn. Let's see how that goes. The Heat. Skr. What up, y'all? The name is Dogon SS. All right. And I'd like to thank everybody who has been hitting the like and subscribe, have been leaving those comments, man. Y'all are the real MVPs, man. Extremely grateful, man. And y'all can find me on Instagrams, TikToks, DraftKings, FanDuels, Dogon_SS. Holla at me. And as I say on every pod, peoples, all right, don't be too hot, don't be too low. Keep it calm, keep it chill, keep it real. And don't let anybody get you off your pivot. So until the next time, everyone, more rings to Robert Ory. We'll catch y'all on the flip side. Skr. Oh, yeah, and by the way, hold on. That was not targeting. Go Kurt. Go Kurt. That was not targeting.
Bro, that's 2 weeks in a row y'all almost lost. I'm
Hey,
sitting there like, how in the world are they down by this much to Cal when Florida State beat Cal?
that was
So-
what? I'm going, what? Boy. Hey, but
Well, we'll see, man. But yeah, all right, man. We are out of there. Until the next video, we certainly appreciate you. We'll see you later. Peace.
peace. Go Kane. Yeah. That was not targeting. All right, that was not.